the middle of the stream. Maybe I'll check some comments and check, like, far ahead. Anyway. It was my first time going to the hospital, but from what I've heard, it wasn't far from school. My mom told me where it was. It was a big, easy-to-see road down with a straight face. I went past the shopping street and made a turn. It wasn't overly hard to spot the sign with Irie Clinic written on it. There was one other person, an older man, there in the air-conditioned waiting room. I went up to the counter and told him it was my first time here. The man behind the counter glanced back at the clock and said there would be a short wait. It was almost 5. Clinic hours would be ending soon. As I sat in this unfamiliar waiting room, isolated from everyone, and let myself feel the cool air, I actually felt relieved. What should I tell the doctor when he comes? I could tell him I had a cold, but I was the very picture of health. Actually, I wanted him to check my head. I wanted someone to confirm for me whether I was really sane or not. Well, Keiichi, what do you think that answer is? What does everybody think that answer is? Come on! From last night? My bar, Keiichi, please come into the examination room. Huh? The voice from the other side of the examination curtain. I thought I heard it somewhere before. Hello, this is the first time we've seen each other here. Coach! Coach, you are a doctor? Now that you mention it, he did seem to know his way around when he was looking at my shoulder in the nurse's office. It would make sense if he was actually a doctor. Come to think of it, our teacher called him Irie-sensei, didn't she? Well, yes, I'm more or less a doctor here. Doctors really have it good, you know? You get to see and touch all the... No! Why the hell do you always gotta be so freaking weird, bro? Thank you very much. Just seeing that made my cold go away. I'll be leaving now. Appropriate answer, Keiichi. Polite bow. Whoa, wait. My bar. Ah! A joke. It was a joke. Come. Sit down. Let me take a look at you. Right. Oh my god. For some reason, I felt really relieved. After that insane night, as much as I thought everything had gone crazy, Coach was here doing the same thing that he always did. I was very happy for that. You don't seem to have a cold. Actually, those cuts and scrapes all over you seem to be a painful thing. Don't tell me you were playing in the bushes with short sleeves and shorts. I mean, I can't say for sure that you haven't been infected with tetanus. As I was chasing that man last night, I kept being scraped by bits of trees. I didn't realize I had so many cuts. You went a little too crazy at the festival yesterday. Enjoy that while you're young. And once again, I apparently went to the festival. Coach, did you go too? To the festival? Yes, of course I did. I may be a doctor, but I'm also on the Watanagashi Executive Committee. Did you see me there? This coach was the same coach I'd always known. I felt like I could trust him more than my weird friends, so I asked. Well, actually, I was drinking in the main tent with the chairman and the others the whole time. I didn't go out and see the festival at all. I don't think I saw you. Oh, that was a strange question. Did you have too much to drink and forget about what happened last night? And at her age, too, you bad child. Coach let out a laugh. He didn't laugh in an unnatural way like Mio and Rena did. Coach was okay. He was the coach from the world I knew. He wasn't someone from this abnormal world. Well, this all might seem a little weird to you, but I want you to hear me out without laughing. Yes, go ahead. I greatly welcome any shy, bashful worries that... What? No! Could it be possible that I have an identical twin? Coach hadn't expected that question at all, and couldn't say anything for a moment. But then he smiled calmly and quietly answered. This is just superstition, but I've heard before that everyone has 2 other people in the world who look just like them. If there was, I'd certainly like to meet him, though. Also, there's plenty of fairy tales where a person's double appears. The German ones about doppelgangers are probably the most famous. Doppelgangers? Yes. They look exactly like another person. Apparently, they are all misfortune. If you meet one, you should be sure to die soon. I think that's how it went. When you meet them, you're sure to die soon. The story ended directly in death, plain and simple, and it made my spine tingle. Coach wasn't saying it to scare me, though. He was just offering a casual anecdote, but that made it feel all the more real. Have you ever heard of one of those things showing up in Hinamizawa? What? I can't say that I have. Coach must have thought he was being teased, so he laughed in an exaggerated way. But when I didn't smile along with him, his laughter steadily grew fainter. I'm sorry, well, I was sort of being serious. No, I apologize for laughing. Was there something you were worried about? I worried if I should tell him. And after resolving myself one last time, I slowly spoke. I didn't go to the festival yesterday. Is that right? Well, there'll be one next year, and then you can... That's not what I meant! I didn't go to the festival, but according to everyone else, I was there. Could that even be possible? After blinking his eyes in amazement, Coach thought seriously about what I was trying to say, and he answered, choosing his words carefully. Let me make sure I have this straight. Maibara, you went to the Watanagashi festival, but don't remember it. Am I right? I was trying to say something completely different, but I suppose any sane person would come to that conclusion. That night, Maibara Keiichi was actually at the festival, but I was saying I didn't go. That obviously meant my memories of going there had failed me. But that was absolutely impossible. That vivid act I had committed during the downpour couldn't possibly have been a delusion. All these scrapes on my body prove it, as does the fact the bat wasn't in the locker. No, that's not it, Coach. I really didn't go to the festival. Please don't take offense, Maibara. Have you had an experience where you were suddenly somewhere unfamiliar and you couldn't remember why? No, and I didn't lose any memories or anything. Because while the festival was going on, I was definitely doing something else. It wasn't like I was asleep and unconscious or anything. You're certain you were doing something else? I know I'm being awfully rude, but are you sure you're not mistaken? I know I'm not. My memories are as clear as day, and they were real. During the festival, you weren't at the shrine, and you were doing something somewhere else. Can you definitely prove that? That's right. Thinking it through brought me to this. There was only one way to prove I really wasn't at the festival yesterday, and that was to show that there was no doubt I had killed her uncle. Coach saw me struggling to answer. His eyes looked a little cold. I guess they would. After all, from Coach's perspective, I was just a weirdo sputtering nonsense. Would you like to lay down? Maybe you should relax and take it easy for a bit. Sorry, I didn't really come here to lay down. You seem to be a little worked up. Why don't I give you a sedative that'll let you sleep for a bit? That way, I'm not being strange! Coach seemed to realize he was treating me like a deviant, and he raised his voice. I apologize if I offended you, so please, calm down. I definitely didn't go to the festival. That's the truth! I understand, so please calm down. Take a deep breath. No! You don't understand at all! Coach was stunned and stared in stupefaction. I do understand, Maibara. You didn't go to the festival yesterday. Is that right? I believe you. Coach jotted out a brief note in his records. He was writing it in German, so that his patient wouldn't know what it said, but I could make a good guess as to what he wrote. You won't believe me until I tell you everything I was doing at the time, will you? No, I believe you. Please, sit down. Before I sat, I tilted my head back a little. The blood on my face all drained out, and I quieted down. After taking a deep breath, I made sure I was calm now. It would have been impossible for me to be at the festival, because at the time I was... Should I tell him or not? I really didn't want to go on living like this, feeling this horrible. And I said them, the final fatal words, because I was killing Satoko's uncle at the time. I could smell the concrete in the room. I could feel the air around us sharpen. Nobody moved. Only the sound of the clock ticking told us time hadn't stopped. With his mouth wide open, Coach even forgot to blink for a little while. You killed Satoko's uncle? Yeah. It's fine now, Maibara Keiichi. Don't hesitate. Admit it with all your strength. Yes. Last night, I did it. I killed him. I spoke clearly and fluidly. I could easily tell that Coach's mind had gone completely blank. Why would you... No, that was a foolish question. I believed it was the most direct method of saving Satoko, so I carried it out. I don't have any regrets. I see. Coach smiled thinly and nodded a bit. So I couldn't have been at the festival. I left the brightness of my house for the darkness of the outside. After that, I dug holes, made phone calls. I had my hands full, and then I attacked him, killed him, and buried him. It was pouring hard at the time. The festival had started that evening, but it was suspended due to the rain. There were no gaps in my memories. From the late afternoon until it started to rain, there was no time for me to possibly have gone to the festival. And those wounds, are they from that? Yes. There's a road through the forest near Satoko's house. I attacked him there. He ran, but I chased him and finally killed him near the road that leads to town. Is that true? Killing her uncle. It wasn't some wild fantasy? I could tell that Coach didn't believe me. So I spoke slowly, not letting myself grow excited. It's true. I killed him with Satoshi's bat. I threw it and the uncle's motorbike into the swamp. I dug a hole, killed him, and buried him. I did it all by myself. Satoko's uncle drove past you on a motorbike, did he? And you predicted he'd do that and just waited? I assumed he wouldn't be leaving his house that day, so I lied to him over the phone to get him out. You called him, but your house is so far away from Satoko's, I wouldn't think you'd be able to make it so far soon after calling him. I used a phone closer to where I was going to attack him, the one at school. But Maibara, it was Sunday. Wouldn't the school have been locked up? A forest ranger happened to go inside for a bit. I slipped in when I had the chance. After that, Coach grilled me on a few different things regarding the incident. He made sure to question me carefully, looking for any contradictions in my account. I'll believe you. What you did yesterday doesn't seem like a dream. I explained everything, including minor details that only someone who had actually committed the act could explain. I could, of course. It was only yesterday. Coach realized that my story had no exponent coincidences or too convenient details that would have existed in a daydream or a delusion, and finally seemed to want to believe me. So, do you still think I went to the festival and lost my memory? Coach slowly shook his head. But everyone in class, they said I was at the festival yesterday. Is that even possible? No, it's not. Your classmates probably mistook you for someone who looked very similar. Then, given how group psychology works, everyone just assumed that you had been at the festival. They couldn't have mistaken me. Mio and all the rest said they were spending time with Maibara Keiichi. It was much more than just having mistaken someone else for me. But saying that out loud would just confuse Coach. He spoke to me in whispered tones. Do you feel guilty at all? It didn't sound like he was criticizing me. And even if he had, I would have flatly said the same thing. I don't. I did it so that I could return the peaceful days that he'd stolen from us. So I plan to forget all about having killed him and live my life as usual. Once Satoko's regular smile returns, the one from before he showed up, everything will finally be over. Any chance that someone else witnessed the crime? I don't think so. If someone had seen me, I would have been arrested already. I am a doctor. My job is to save lives. So I can't make any statements to the effect of condoning the taking of another's life. So instead I will say this. Coach slowly rose and placed a hand on my shoulder. For saving Satoko, I thank you. Coach's eyes started shedding warm tears. When I looked at him, I started to feel some tears of my own. I didn't know what I was crying for, and so for a little while the two men in the room fought back their tears. But it's strange. What is? I'm sure I killed him, and yet he seems to have returned home alive. Coach's expression immediately sharpened. Depending on the situation, there are many ways that mere unconsciousness can look like real death to a lay person. Do you think it was possible he was just knocked out? I didn't check for a pulse, but I'm pretty sure I did him in. Can I ask you to reproduce the situation in which you attacked him, Maibara? Coach rolled up a Health and Fitness Week poster nearby and offered it to me to represent the bat. Though I may have been lost in the emotions of the beast that night, I remembered in detail the number of times I swung the bat, the angles I had swung from, the force I had applied. Using Coach as a stand-in for the uncle, I reproduced them over one by one. And when he tripped and fell, I bashed him in the top of his head like this, and when I did it, it felt different from other strikes. I thought I cracked his skull. Coach was calmly analyzing this information, using the places I'd struck, the situation at hand to find out what state the uncle's body had been in. I wasn't totally sure he was dead, so I hit him a few more times after he fell. Did he react at all? At first I sort of felt his body jolting with every hit, but eventually that stopped too and he didn't react at all. Coach folded his arms and said, a few times, then he spoke. He's dead. There's not much doubt about it. He didn't just look like he was? I can't say very much from just your story, Maibara, but I think it's almost certain. Besides, you buried the corpse in the mud, and that took you quite a bit of time, right? Let's say it took you 30 minutes. That would mean he was buried under the muddy water for those 30 minutes. If you don't breathe for that long, your brain will die no matter what. You mean even ignoring how hard I hit him, he would have definitely died while I was burying him? That's right. It's impossible to stay alive underground for 30 minutes. Impossible, you're right. But, Satoko, she says he's alive! Coach, a doctor, just gave his stamp of approval that he was dead for sure. That made it seem more unfair that he would still be among the living. Maibara, this is a really horrible idea, but is it possible the person you killed wasn't actually her uncle? Huh? He's right. That could be why it cleared up the inconsistency of my definitely having killed someone, but him still being alive. There's no way! I mean, we were both at Satoko's house when he was bringing his alcohol inside, and there was a man who stuck his face out the window to look. It was him, right? That was Satoko's uncle, right? Yes, you're not wrong. It was that man. Could she have more than one uncle or something? Not one that I've ever heard of. It's just him. Could you tell me what he looked like? Well, his height first. He was about 175 centimeters, maybe a little taller. In order to eliminate the worst possibility that I killed someone else, Coach began to thoroughly compare what the man in his mind looked like with what I told him the person I killed looked like. But no matter how in-depth my description went, none of the characteristics differed. The uncle's traits, according to Coach, were all exactly the same as the person I'd killed, but those traits were all extremely vague, and they weren't particularly distinct at a glance. Is there anything else about him that would let us identify him for sure? Now that you mention it, I've never seen it, but I believe Satoko once said a long time ago he had a tattoo of a tiger or something on his back. A tattoo? That was really important. Not everyone had a tattoo. If I found a tiger tattoo on the back of the man's corpse, it'd be proof I'd killed the right one. At the moment, though, there was one other thing that would verify this. To go to Satoko's house and see for myself the uncle that had returned home, despite having died. But that was far more terrifying than digging up the body and looking at its back, without even looking at the tattoo. I knew for sure the one I'd killed had been Satoko's uncle. I cracked his head open and killed him, and yet he'd gone back home. There wasn't any misunderstanding, or even the shadow of a doubt in my mind about having killed him, and yet it was impossible for him to exist. Kind of how my brother Keiichi had been at the festival despite it being impossible. That small commonality made me feel as though a faint but bizarre force was permeating this insane Hinamizawa. I wonder what on earth could have happened, despite you not going to the festival and killing Satoko's uncle. You were at the festival and the uncle you killed is alive. None of this makes any sense. When I looked at everything that way, it's almost like I'm having a nightmare and there's no killer at all, but it's the truth. The sensation I used my own hands and that bat to bash him again and again. It was no illusion or dream. Coach let out a slow sigh, and after looking at the clock, got up. Let's go over this all a little more seriously. If you excuse me, I'll go put on some tea. Clinic's about to close after all. I need to let the other employees leave. Coach stood up and went out to the hallway, leaving me alone. The clock was about to strike 6. I was at the festival, and the uncle I killed was alive. Had I really committed murder yesterday? The only whisper of the fact that proved it happened was the absence of the bat from Satoshi's locker. In any case, I was glad that Coach had taken my nonsense seriously. I just confessed to murder. Normally that would frighten a person away, but Coach didn't run, he cried with me. I was glad he did. Like so, my tension smoothly melted away, and I suddenly realized I had to urinate. I thought I'd used the restroom while Coach had stepped out. There was one across from the waiting room. As soon as I left the room, I saw Coach and 2 male doctors wearing white clothing standing in the shadows of the hallway nearby. I didn't particularly intend to eavesdrop or anything, but I was quite surprised upon noticing how uneasy they seemed. I hid behind the wall and quietly listened in. It seemed like Coach was giving directions to the 2 doctors. Black tea, I'll make some. Mix in some amobarbital or ravenol. Cover the taste with milk and sugar. He may grow suspicious at the sudden onset of drowsiness. It's possible he may get agitated and become violent. We will handle that. How many male staff are still here? 1 mountain dog, including us 3. What was all this? I think I was already agitated despite what Coach had said. Was that it? Was it just casual conversation? It was only sounding unbelievable to me. Coach said he would bring back some black tea and left the room. And then in the shadows he was telling his subordinates to put some kind of sleeping powder in the tea. Plus, they were getting extra help in case I thought the sudden sleepiness was suspicious and started getting violent. Hey, wait, my brother Keiichi! Calm down, there's no way something this stupid could be happening. I mean, he was genuinely listening to my story and he even cried with me. I thought he was the one person in Hinamizawa who would understand. This was... There are signs of fabrications or falsehoods, and his memory of yesterday in particular are completely confused. He can no longer tell truth from falsehood. It's quite similar to multiple personality disorder. But as for how quickly this mental disorder emerged, it's just not normal. Maybe it's inborn, or perhaps there were signs of it before he moved here. I'd like to take a look at any records of him staying at a mental hospital before he moved here. In any case, I want him to take a quiet nap. The 2 doctors nodded deeply. I should probably contact Mybra's parents too, though I can't think of what to tell them. Please find his home phone number for me. My eyes, still moist, began to shed tears once more. This was too cruel. I really thought... I thought he understood, and I actually went and told him. But now from the other side of the wall, he was bluntly treating me like a crazy person. I believed you. I let down my guard because I thought you were the only ally I had left after that insane night. Was that a lie? All that about thanking me on Satoko's behalf. Were you just pretending in order to keep me placated? My tears fell to the floor in frustration. I was an idiot. I was such an idiot for believing that bastard. I heard footsteps approaching the doctors. A man in a dress shirt with no tie came running up. Dr. Irie, it's terrible. They found Takano. Takano? Wait, where? Well, apparently they discovered her burned corpse in the mountains of Gifu. She's dead. Takano? The men, all surprised, exchanged glances. Dead. Takano. Hey, wait. So then, does that mean when I cursed her, wishing for her death, that wish was granted? What do you mean, burned corpse? Was it an accident? According to the Gifu police statements, the possibility is extremely high that she was murdered. As I cried, I laughed quietly. Serves you right. Serves you right! If I hadn't run into that woman, my murder would have been perfect, but she had just come driving up to me and tried to coerce me like that. I regretted not having killed her on the spot, but now she was dead anyway. My curse, my wish for her demise, it was fulfilled! Serves you right! Serves you right! Risa died. Takano died. What on earth could be happening in Hinamizawa? Don't tell me this is all Oyashiro's curse for this year! Like hell I let the curse be real, Coach said. Everyone present just nodded, as Coach cursed no one in particular. Yes, maybe it wasn't Oyashiro, but this was definitely a spell, a curse! I wished for her to die, so she did! This wasn't just a coincidence that she died because I wished for it. Then you'll die next, Coach! You betrayed me. You pretended to believe me, but deep down you thought I was a madman! You looked down on me with all that pity in your eyes! For now, get that black tea ready. I'll bring it inside. I don't think he'd let anyone else beside me be alone with him. Shit! What did I do? My brother Keiichi? This time I heard the voice of a nurse. Dr. Irie, oh, there you are. You have a phone call. I'm a little busy at the moment, so please tell them I'll call them back. Who's it from? Mr. Oishi from Okinomiya Police Department. Ah, sheesh, what bad timing. Alright, I'll answer it. Coach left to go to answer the phone. The other men headed toward the room with the teapot to make black tea, like Coach had ordered them to. For fortunately, Coach had been taking the phone call, meant there would be extra time for me to act. I had to decide what to do now. Would I let them make me drink the sedative-infused tea, or be held down and thrown into a mental hospital? Nothing would come from starting a brawl here. They had more people anywhere, and they were all bigger than me. If it came to a fight, I didn't stand a chance in hell. If I couldn't win against them, there was only one thing left to do. Run. Adrenaline suddenly rushed into my brain and my body and started to move with keen instinct like it had on that night. My surface temperature quickly cooled. The transmission routes between my cells enlarged. Using 360-degree visual information, I searched for an escape route. I would open the window behind me. Outside was a parking lot. There were no cars. A little beyond was a bicycle I had taken to get there. I determined this would be the quickest method of escape. I approached the window swiftly, but with a little sound to raise as little suspicion as I could. With the speed and silence of a shadow like I had on that night, I chased her uncle. I unlocked the window and opened it up. A cool evening breeze wafted in. I stuck my head out and looked over the parking lot again. Nobody in sight. No need to hesitate. I quietly crawled outside and closed the window behind me. I held my breath and listened carefully. Nobody seemed to realize I'd run. I looked around. Then I jumped onto my bicycle and zoomed away. The pedals clattered under the force. Had my bike always creaked like this? Did the pedals always whine every time I pushed down on them? My bike wasn't the only one crying, though. My tears fell as the wind cut through them. They rode the breeze and scattered behind me. I hate this. I hate this! I'm not the crazy one. Hinamizawa is! How dare you treat me like a madman! Die! Die! Just fucking die already! I believed you! I believed you! I'd gone to the hospital in order to escape Rena Amion's invitation, but the reality that was waiting for me had been too cruel. Who was insane? Me or Hinamizawa? Or was the answer something else? I started having trouble breathing. I didn't have any clue what was happening anymore. The loud chirps of the Higurashi were irritating me. Were even the Hinamizawa Higurashi I knew so well calling into the wind? No, that wasn't quite it. They weren't calling. They were crying. The pained wailing of those lost in some kind of rhythm in another world, no longer able to return to their own sunlight. I didn't do all of that to end up in a world like that! And actually, at that time, I might have been actually having fun with everyone else. Satoko would have gotten her smile back after realizing her uncle would ever come home, as she might have shown it to us at our first club meeting in a while. That was the kind of world I wished for. So what was this? Why did I end up in such a strange, ghastly world? Someone I killed was living like normal, and I had enjoyed myself at the festival despite not being there. I don't want it. I don't want this strange world! When did it start to go wrong? When? When? No matter how much I thought about it, I never understood. I rode swiftly and returned to my home. It had begun to rain during my journey back, and just like yesterday, I was now soaked. But I didn't care about something so trivial right now. The pain I felt in my heart that Coach, the one person I trusted, was acting so cruelly, was far worse. Did I have no allies in Hinamizawa anymore? With the naive thought that I at least wanted my parents to side with me, I stepped to the front door. Wait. Keiichi. It'll be dark soon. There's something you want to check, right? Yes. I wanted to dig up that man's corpse and get a look at his back. If there's a tiger tattoo there, I would know beyond a doubt he was Sadako's uncle. That long night wouldn't end until I was certain. If this insane world was all reparation, all divine punishment, then I needed to make certain whether I had been successful enough to even deserve to pay that price. I went to the storage room again and got the shovel. It had been washed in the rain, but the paint was peeling, making it look unsightly. I never, ever wanted to touch this thing again. The sensation of it in my hands was totally different from the night before. There was a ruthless coldness about it. Yeah, it'd be dark soon, so I needed a lantern too. There'd be a little bit of light from the streetlights, but it would get extremely dark. I thought I'd put the lantern here, but I suddenly noticed it wasn't anywhere to be found. It hit me like a bolt of lightning, of course. On the night I hadn't brought the lantern back with me, I left it at the place I buried the body. If I didn't go to get it soon, it would get very dark, and then not only would I be unable to find the spot I buried the corpse, but I wouldn't be able to find the lantern itself. If that happened, it was all over. I need to hurry. In order to fill the shovel in the basket on the front of my bike, I'll need to twist it and disassemble it, but it looked like there was dirt in the joints, and no matter how hard I pushed, it didn't want to come apart. After a strenuous effort, I realized I couldn't get it apart. I decided to hold it in one hand and ride my bike with the other. with the downpour soaking me through and a shovel in one hand and writing one-handed. It was as if I returned to that night. No, return was the wrong word. It was more like that night had never ended. The pain of the raindrops striking me were no different from then. The thing that was different was Hinamizawa. The world and nothing else. The rain clouds were already making it dark, and now was about the time for the sun to set. I could tell it would only rapidly get darker. The straight road leading to town, in the middle of it. That should be where I buried it. Yes, it was near that streetlight. On that night, too, the water from the downpour was splashing down from the streetlight's overhang like a waterfall. The pouring rain was exactly the same it had been that night, and thus it brought my memories into focus. I left my bike into the brush and stepped into the forest, the ground already soaked with mud. Where had I buried him? Think. The darkness, the shadows, the water, the mud. Everything was the same. Think! And then I spotted the lantern by the fallen moss-covered tree. That's right, I left it right there. If I left the lantern there, then I would have buried him over here. With the sensation of standing in the sludge, my feet remembered the spot better than my eyes did. I plunged my shovel into the ground. It's hard. It wasn't here. I just dug it up so it would have been softer. I stick my shovel in down a few spots to test what they feel like. One of them clearly felt deeper. I recalled where the lantern was, where the trees and things were in relationship with each other, and knew it had to be here. Under here slept that man's corpse. There would definitely be the tattoo of a tiger on his back, but if it wasn't there, then I had made a horrible mistake and killed somebody completely unrelated instead. I'd be more dazed at the fact that Satoko's uncle was dead, and then I would regret having gotten someone else mixed up in this. If this insane world was punishment for the sin of committing murder, I wouldn't be able to accept it until I killed Satoko's uncle for good. And then, without any fear, I'd attack him again. And that time, I would kill him for sure. But what if the tattoo was there? That would mean I killed Satoko's uncle. But that would be terribly strange. If I killed him for sure, then who was the uncle at Satoko's house at this very moment? Impossible. I didn't even know anymore what I was using the word impossible to refer to. I used the word quite a few times today. If I had to make the words impossible fit just one thing, what would it be? That much was obvious to me. It would be impossible for this crazy world to be real. I shouted, and then turned behind me. There was nobody there, of course. It hadn't been bothering me for a while, but those footsteps have followed me this entire day. Even just now, an extra step of footsteps have splashed behind me. No one was actually there. No indications of anyone even, but they were there. Who are you? You've been following me ever since I came to this world. That's right. Thinking back, the first time I heard those footsteps was after Takano and I had parted. Those footsteps. They were my welcome into this strange inside-out world. No one could be there. I'd get no response. Whoever it was, they just kept staring at me. It wasn't ominous, just unpleasant. After staring into the empty space for a bit, as I bathed in the rain, my illogical anger slipped away. My tension loosened. A tired feeling reared its head. I tasted this feeling that night too. The sudden exhaustion I felt as the tension in my brain loosened. My vision quickly narrowed. I felt like everything around me had suddenly gotten darker. I couldn't give in to this sensation. I would light what little explosives were left in my brain and force myself to keep going. I need to dig that man up before my stamina ran out. I needed to see the tattoo on his back. I caught my suddenly ragged breath and calmed down. I stuck the shovel into the soft muddy ground again. It felt exactly the same as that night. The sense of digging a shovel on the beach, with water coming into it with every wave. What day was today? Had I gone right back to the night of Watanagashi? Every strange thought that came to mind tormented me. Given my exhaustion, I didn't think I could manage to hold those thoughts back. Once the hole was deep, all illumination finally faded, blanketing my vision in jet black. It was probably the moment the sun had fully set, too. At night, I feared the worst. Gone without using much light. My senses were so strained that I could even see in that darkness. But now I didn't even have that kind of strength left. I drained everything I had last night, and now the darkness would be lethal. I decided to turn on the lantern. Putting it on the first setting would make it give off a faint light. Even with how little there was, it was enough, and people wouldn't be able to see it from far away in this rain. I grabbed the chilled lantern, turned on the dial with a click, and set it on the weakest light setting, and turned it on. An uncanny world of silhouettes appeared before me, a complex and strange shadowy world created by the intricate entanglement of trees and branches. I had only turned on a light, and it was like that was all it took to make the world into something else. I let out a quick, tired breath and wiped the liquid, neither rain nor sweat, from my brow. Then I raised the shovel into the air and slammed it into the mud. That moment, the silhouettes surrounding me ominously all moved at once. Inside my head, something packed in there, something coarse but not hot or cold, was loudly rushing about. The silhouettes were all around me, looking down at me, and one of them, a silhouette bigger than the other, stepped forward.
Good evening. The moon sure is beautiful tonight.
The coarseness in my brain shot through my whole spine and left me at my waist. The strength of my body all left me through my hips. I crouched down with a splash into the sea of mud. I dug myself. Oishi.
Is that really how you address your elders? You have a rough time of it once you become an adult.
It wasn't only Oishi, but 5 or 6 of them in a row, men wearing raincoats. I had no inkling that this many people had gotten so close. It was like once I turned on the lantern, they just appeared there, sliding out of the shadows.
Please, don't mind us. Just think of us as trees in the forest, perhaps.
Don't mind them?
Yes. Pay no attention to us. Please continue digging your hole. It's very late and raining very hard, and you're working pretty fervently. We won't get in your way. Please, dig to your heart's content.
No, thank you, I said. When I tried to get up and turn around, 2 men blocked the route. They stood on either side of me and lifted me up with amazing strength and threw me into the sea of mud. As I soaked in the mud bath I dug for myself, I looked up at the silhouettes looking down at me. Oishi squatted, picked up my shovel and threw it at my feet for me. It bounced loudly off the mud and hit me in the face.
Come, please, continue. Continue.
I couldn't bear the oppressiveness of the silhouette surrounding me, and slowly I stuck the shovel into the mud again. It felt like I was digging my own grave. If I kept digging, it wouldn't matter whether there was a tattoo or not, because that man's corpse would appear eventually. It was all over, surrounded on all sides and nowhere to go. But I just couldn't figure it out, no matter how much I thought about it. Why were they here? Was it Takano? There was only one person who could have made the connection between me and this place. Shit, I knew it. She deserved to die!
Stopping so soon.
Ah! Oishi kicked me in the back, which took me by surprise, sending me flying into the mud.
Hurry up and dig, please. You really should consider the fact that some of us are standing out here in the rain.
Fuck you. If you don't like the rain, then just go home. Oishi kicked some mud into my face.
Work instead. Only people from the red light district do both at once. Isn't that right, boys?
The men around him didn't react, not knowing quite whether they should laugh, but when Oishi glared at them, they started mumbling out pained chuckles. Just who was this guy? I knew the world had changed after that night, but if I went even further back, didn't it start when this guy showed up? That was when our peaceful days had been taken away from us. Ever since he showed up in Hinamizawa, things have been odd. Everyone stopped smiling and the world went crazy. The ground under my feet gradually got harder and heavier. At this point, I even started to think something was odd. I hadn't buried him this deep on the night, had I? My exhaustion peaked and I sat down on the spot. How long do you want me to dig?
Kids these days have no stamina. Hey, you!
At Oishi's gesture, the men all pulled down their sinister-looking shovels. As I watched the days, one of them grabbed my collar, dragged me out of the hole, and threw me to the ground. The rest of the men stepped into the hole I dug and started shoveling themselves. As I stared at them dumbfounded, Oishi sauntered over and squatted down to look at me directly.
My bar Keiichi, is this a hobby of yours? Digging holes on rainy nights?
When I didn't respond, Oishi took one of the tin buckets they were using to bail out the muddy water, scooped up some of it, and splashed the whole thing in my face.
The rain's heavy today, too. No matter how wet I get, I still understand the appeal.
Oishi smiled to himself and scooped up another bucket full of muddy water.
I'll ask you again. Is digging holes on rainy nights your hobby?
Who the hell would have a hobby like that? Oishi hit me with another bucket full of muddy water. The pebbles in it stung.
Will there be something in that hole? I always liked the story, about the old man who could make plants bloom and the puppy digging in his yard for gold.
As he spoke, he ran the bucket through the muddy water again, to splash it in my face again.
What kind of treasure is buried down there, Can't you at least give me a hint?
If you want to know, then dig on your own time, you fucking pig! I wasn't saying that out loud, but Oishi mercilessly drenched me in muddy water again anyway. Shit! If only you hadn't shown up, the world wouldn't have gone wrong! Ever since you showed up, things have been strange. Satoko got abused by her uncle. I ended up killing him and the world went crazy. He was how it all began, because of this culprit! He splashed another bucket of mud in my face. My insides were seething with anger. Die. You die too! If I have some strange power to kill someone by cursing them like with Takano, then you're dead! And it won't be Oyashiro's curse, it'll be mine. I'll curse you and kill you!
What a rebellious look you're wearing. Why don't we use this opportunity to teach you a thing or two in that regard? We really do live in peace these days. When I was about your age, corporal punishment was the norm for everything.
Oishi, one of the digging men in the raincoats, wiped off some sweat and called Oishi over. Oishi tossed the bucket away and turned over with an evil grin on his face.
Yes, what is it?
Please look at this. Acceptance, or maybe resignation. I wanted to say to them. So you blockheads finally found it. Yeah, that's right. I'm the one who killed him. But you're the police, so your own job is to figure out who he is, right? Come on. Prove to me that he's really Sadako's uncle.
What on earth?
We think it's an old drain pipe. It seems to be connected to the irrigation channel over there.
Let's smash the thing. It's not being used, is it?
The men all exchanged glances and hesitatingly broached another topic. Oishi, the ground down here is pretty hard. I don't think anything could be deeper than this.
Did we get the location wrong?
No, at first it felt like the place had definitely been dug up before, but after digging so far, the ground suddenly hardened. We think we've gone down further than the hole that was originally dug.
So, what does that mean? There was a hole here and someone filled it back up? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
What? What were they talking about?
Well, I'm at a loss, aren't you, Maibara?
Oishi grabbed my collar and dragged me to the hole huge hole he dug. The mud inside was like an ocean. I couldn't see any drain pipe down there. One of the men stirred it with a shovel, letting it clear. It clanged against something hard. There was no doubt I buried him right here, but I hadn't buried him this deep. I didn't dig deep enough to unearth an entire drain pipe. So then, this man, his corpse, where was it? Proof that I had been successful on that night was gone. Gone. Then, what on earth was I? Was I actually crazy after all and just possessed by some delusion that I killed someone? That couldn't be. It was the unmistakable truth. It couldn't have been an hallucination, but now the most important evidence that it hadn't been an illusion was gone. I killed him. I buried him. I had absolutely unwavering confidence in that fact. Then, did I fail to kill him? After I left here, had he gone, started breathing back, crawled out, gone back to Sadako's house? Was that it? I'd come here to see whether he had a tattoo or not. And yet, the truth I unearthed was far more than that. Yesterday, what was I? I killed him. I buried him. There was no doubt. But for some reason, he lived and crawled back out. And that was impossible, too. I'm so tired of hearing the word impossible over and over. I get it. Dead people don't like to play by the rules here in Hinamizawa. And I'll kill you as many times as I need to. I'll keep killing you until you never show your face to Satoko again. Oishi and the others were muttering to each other. Eventually their conversation ended, and Oishi came toward me. What did he want to say? What did he want to do? I stiffened, tensed up, and then Oishi just ignored me like I wasn't even there and passed right by me. The other men too. They ignored me and shuffled away. Eventually there was no longer a sign that anyone was around. I returned to my quiet world of silhouettes. The only one left there was me. Only the sound of the pouring rain filled with the silence. Well, well.
Dang, Teppy just got back up. He took it like a champ. Dang. He tried to kill him, but it no be dare. He failed. Keiichi, how the hell are you so stupid that you fail to kill him too? Goodness gracious. Inquiry request. Okinomiya Police Station Command Center transmission recording. June 20th, 8:08 p.m. By the way, I already know the real answer. I'm just saying things. This is the Okinomiya Security Police. We read you loud and clear. Hello, we'd like you to look up a license plate for us. Alright, please give us a moment to look it up. Thank you. Number match. Owner. Address. Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone. Vehicle make and model. Thief reports none. Special mentions nothing of note. Okinomiya Security Police to Oishi. We found the license plate from earlier. Oishi, do you read? Oishi, please respond. Am I getting a back signal? Anyone in Oishi's car, please read. Nothing, eh? Oishi wanted a license plate check? Whose car was it? Someone from the village. A completely average car. Who was it? If Oishi was asking, then it can't be anyone good, right? The special mention column is completely blank. No indication it's related to the S group either. And no demerits on it. Maybe it passed him on the road and he got mad. That guy isn't the type to forget a grudge. Huh. What car, I wonder? Record of malice. He said it smelled. Wait. Oops. Okay, I know. Okay, I know who it is.
He said it smelled. He said the food smelled. He said it smelled because I smelled. He said I smelled because I don't take baths. He said I'd take a bath 3 times a day because I was a smelly person. He said I had to stay in the bath for a long time every time. He must be possessed by something too. This is the same thing that the man who died said. Why does he know what that man said before? Not much is obvious. The same thing that possessed that man is now possessing him. Can a sudden earthquake make a big hole in front of the house? If it did, he'd definitely go and look into it. And then I just have to push him in. I won't give in until I get that chance. I won't give in. I won't cry. I won't give in. I won't cry. Someone is apologizing again.
So, that is supposed to be Satoko. That's what it belongs. That's who it belongs to. So, yeah. I mean, it's really vague. So, what can you really make of that? Okay, just give me a moment. I need to go in here, and I need to turn off the display capture. Ooh, maybe the other display captures too. I can't have you see what I'm doing. Okay. Just a really quick break thing. Really quick. I have to speed through to see if I'm gonna see. I have to really skip through right now. I have to skip through to see if I'm gonna see anything different. So yeah, right now just like a quick break and all that stuff. I'm skipping through the story in order to see if there's anything going on. Hold on, I gotta check. Is there? No, you can't see my screen. You're not supposed to see it on purpose. So it's black because I did it deliberately. Because I'm checking things. Because I just really want to make sure that there is censorship. Because, okay, so what I'm going to explain is that in the visual novel, Satoko in the original visual novel, she only had a towel and all that stuff. And it falls off, and I'm trying to make sure that that isn't going to show up here. I really don't want that. Because that would be weird, and I really don't like that. Wait, this is taking forever. Maybe I'll just keep reading. Okay, I'm just gonna go back and load, okay? Give me a moment. I'm gonna load, and I'm gonna turn the thing back on. It's just that I was concerned, so we're gonna load it again.
I'm gonna turn the screen back on. I'm not gonna check right now because because it takes too long. So I'm just gonna turn this back on. So okay, it looks like right now Keiichi is still reminiscing. So we're not at the scene yet. Sorry, the body wasn't there. The police didn't arrest me because of that, but I didn't know whether to feel happy about it. Just like Satoko had said, I'd failed to kill her uncle. The body wasn't there, so I was forced to conclude as much. No matter what strange natural disaster, coincidence, or miracle I might have implied, in order to free Satoko, I became a demon. This abnormal world was my reward. Yes, metaphorically, I'd fallen into the demon world. But if that price had been in exchange for the life of Satoko's uncle, that would have been fine, since Satoko's uncle was still alive, still shackling her to him. I needed to become a demon once again. One more time. No, as many times as it took. I'd kill that man over and over again until Satoko was liberated. I had already awoken. I looked at the clock to see that it was early in the morning, at just about 5. It was already light outside. Once I hardened my resolve to become a demon again, I could feel my whole body teeming with the awakened power once more. Time wasn't an issue. No matter what, I'd do it. I got myself up. The exhaustion from the past 2 days was completely swept away. I didn't even feel sleepy anymore either. I slowly rose and made sure my body was moving like I wanted it to. I could feel blood flowing through each and every one of my fingers. As I got dressed, I let my mind waver and had a strange thought. These 2 days, while I've said it was for Satoko's sake, the only thing on my mind has been killing. I said it was for Satoko. But while actually carrying out the act, I had completely forgotten about Satoko. I'll bet only temporarily. Maybe initially it was for Satoko's sake, but now I was just a demon, killing for the sake of killing. And as a result, I'd sunk into a world fit for such a demon. Maybe it was the same for Satoshi. He resolved himself to kill his aunt, to save Satoko, and became a demon, then disappeared from the sunlit Hinamizawa, vanishing into the demon world. Which meant that, after all was said and done, I'd met the same fate as him. I tried to avoid making the same mistakes, but it happened anyway. Which meant that maybe Satoshi was here. Satoshi had come to this world a year before me, so he would be here somewhere. Then, surprised, I stopped walking. There was a second set of footsteps I'd grown so used to hearing. Could you be Satoshi? The empty, lifeless air wouldn't give me an answer, but I felt a strange kind of relief that there was someone there, that Satoshi had stuck with me the whole time. Let's go, Satoshi. Once more. This time we will set Satoko free for sure. I quickly slipped out of the house so my parents wouldn't notice. If they caught me now, I had been way too late for 2 days now. They'd give me a really angry talking to, so I didn't have the time to allow for that to happen. Today I would put an end to it. If the dead body disappeared, then I didn't have to bury it. I would just burn it to ashes, and then take them with me, so I could kill him again every time he resurrected. I'd do it again. I'd kill him again, and this time I'd set her free. Outside, the morning light was so beautiful as to stagger belief. I went to the storage room to find weapons with which I could kill him for sure. Blunt or not, it didn't matter to me. Right now, I didn't need to care whether someone saw or if the police came. This world had gone crazy after all. A world where I showed up at the festival and had fun even though I wasn't there. Even if the police arrested me, I'd probably end up going right back home as if nothing happened. Both me and that other Maibara Keiichi. Even without me, he'd fill in. I could vanish from Hinamizawa without anyone noticing. So basically, I didn't care if I was mistakenly killed. Even if I died, Maibara Keiichi would remain. After all, this isn't the world I belong in. If I was going to be killed mistakenly for Satoko's sake, then that was just part of my duty as her nini. As those desperate thoughts became serious, the morning air felt more refreshing to me, strangely enough. Oh, this one's scary. Let's go with this. It was a hatchet meant for chopping thick firewood. Its hefty steel blade was sinister, almost as though it was a tool meant for killing people. I couldn't exactly take it out in public like that, so I wrapped it in a little old newspaper and tossed it in the basket of my bike. Sorry for using you for evil all the time. I'll need you again today, my legs. I apologized to my bike for some reason. For the past 3 days, I've only used it for dangerous things. I've been riding this bike ever since I lived in my old town. I could walk most places I wanted to go, so I hadn't used it all that much. My mom had bought it for me when I had entered cram school, thinking it'd be a convenient way to get to the station since it was far away, so I'd always used it to get back and forth from cram school. I only ever put textbooks and class materials in the front basket, too. I never tried to put in a hatchet that I'd be using to kill someone in there. When I came to Hinamizawa, life finally felt fun. I met the best friends ever and had some of the greatest times ever. Those times would have been shattered now, but it was my greatest wish that I could get them back, even if I had risked my life to do it. That's how fun those times had been. I killed someone, and now I was at it again, needing to kill someone. Murder was a crime. I didn't believe that people should ever think murder was okay, but still, the times I had were enjoyable enough for me to commit such a crime. My friends were irreplaceable. The time spent with them a treasure. Hanging out, laughing, sometimes tricking each other, but always in a friendly way. I didn't fear committing any crime, as long as it was for the sake of turning back those times that gave my heart so much pleasure. Yes, this was a value I decided to uphold. It wasn't something I learned from a school teacher. It was a noble path that I chose for myself. I thought back to when I first come to Hinamizawa, about how the very first day Satoko had welcomed me via a blackboard eraser with a rock in it. That welcome really surprised the heck out of me. She'd laugh, get angry, cry. She was never boring. She was obviously the most childlike one among us, but she was actually lively, full of vim and vigor, and good at meddling in other people's business. That went for Mion, Rena, and Rika, too. Wasn't Satoko the one at the center of everyone's laughing and banter? Satoko would try to look cool. Then Mion would make fun of her endlessly. Then Satoko would cry, which would put Rena in a state of ecstasy. Rika would be greatly delighted. And I happened to get mixed up in it. We'd always fool around like that. It was lonely when someone wasn't around, but if I had to name one for whom it was the worst, it would have been Satoko. Her smile was everyone's smile. Ever since she stopped smiling, so did the rest of us. And for the rest of us, not smiling was the same as dying. It was just like when I was silently going to cram school every day just to maintain my unchanging test scores. So, basically, we were nothing when she wasn't smiling. She was full of hot air, but she was our princess, cute and unhateable. In that case, I was her knight searching for the dragon's castle in order to win her smile back. Knights, of course, use swords. The awesome two-handed kind. I'm probably the only knight in the history of the world to be taking on someone with a thick, rusty hatchet. And I saw an old woman in the ridge of the field waving to me. "Oh my, Keiichi, out for a morning ride, I see. Good morning!" I reflexively waved back in a refreshing way. Should I really have been feeling so happy waving like that? Sadako's house would be right past this road, going beyond the rice paddies. The cicadas had woken up too. The next thing I knew, I was the audience to their daily chorus. I gave myself a hit or two in the head and drove away my merry morning mood. I took a deep breath, tilted my head back, quelling my pointless excitement. The body wasn't there. Its absence either meant my killing him had been an illusion, or I killed him and he'd risen from the dead. If I wasn't at the festival, then maybe I should have considered it an illusion. Coach probably thought that way, which is why he treated me like a lunatic. But it being an illusion was just impossible. I killed him without a doubt. Without a doubt. If it had been an illusion, that would make all this Hinamizawa was in right now an illusion. If that was the case, then here's how it would have ended up. I was actually in a vegetative state due to a traffic accident. I was currently dreaming in the hospital bed. How great it would be to spend time with friends and rice paddies like these. That was a terrifying thought, though. If this wasn't an illusion, then the only possible answer was that he resurrected. It would make him a literal monster. But if he was such a monster, then I was no less than a monster myself. I didn't hesitate to kill someone, and I could even manipulate curses. Takano had died probably because I cursed her. Or maybe that was a little much. If Coach and Oishi died too, like I cursed them to yesterday, then I'd believe it. I set my bicycle aside and went to take a look. His motorbike wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. I sent it to hell that night, throwing it in the Onigafuchi swamp. Or maybe, just like how the corpse wasn't here, maybe the motorbike didn't get thrown into the swamp either? The fact that his bike wasn't here might have been because he'd gone to town and hadn't come back, not necessarily because I'd thrown it to the swamp if her uncle wasn't around. And that was convenient on its own. Then I'd just show myself in and wait for him to return, sharpening my hatchet, if he was there. Forgotten sensations came back to my gut. A feeling of tension rose within me. The sensation was like poison dulling my actions, but it could also be the trigger to allow me to awaken to my superhuman, otherworldly self. I held the hatchet, still wrapped up in newspaper. It weighed in my hands as profound and sinister and reliable. I didn't know what time it was without a clock. It's probably still a little bit before 7. Satoko would probably be awake preparing breakfast and her lunch. But her uncle would probably still be wallowing in indolence. A guy like him probably would have stayed up late drinking, and probably always slept until noon. I considered ringing the doorbell and having Satoko open the door for me, but if her uncle woke up at the sound, I'd waste my chance of him still being asleep. If Satoko saw me sneaking inside without ringing the doorbell, she'd be surprised. If I ran into her, what would I say? I'd come to kill your uncle for you, so stay quiet. No, I couldn't do that. That would be like making Satoko responsible for his death. Be quiet and go wait outside. Maybe that would do it. How would Satoko react to that? She would probably try and get me to give up on killing him. I would have to lie to somehow get her to go outside. Satoko didn't need to know what a murder was going to occur in this house. I couldn't quite think of a good lie to tell her, but I couldn't do as much as stand around like this. I made up my mind and grabbed the doorknob. Then slowly turned it. And pulled. It wasn't locked. The gap between the door and the wall suddenly grew larger. The chain wasn't even on. The oppressive smell of life in Satoko's house hit me. At the entrance there were a few pairs of shoes and sandals. I couldn't tell them whether or not he was there by looking at him. I could hear the television somewhere. The television was in the messy dining room. There was food scattered about the table, giving an impression decidedly different from a happy family's mealtime. Meals were for eating food while thanking the person for making it. Meanwhile, whatever occurred in the dining room wasn't a meal. Nobody in sight. No sight of anyone either. But with the television on, he must have been close. Could he have anticipated my coming and wait for me? And the tension I felt was so thick, so tight I thought it would choke me. The newspaper wrapping the hatchet's thick blade didn't hamper its power at all. I tightened my grip on it, and then very carefully took a look around. Where had those peaceful feelings from before I arrived here gone? Even the sound of sweat bubbling up on my brow got on my nerves. Then I looked at the table and realized something. This wasn't breakfast. The grains of boiled rice were all hard and dried up. Then, was it last night's dinner? I left the dining room, keeping vigilant, went down the hallway, down the stairs to the second floor. And that man was playing with his friends. He looked out the second-story window. It was highly possible that the room was his own and he slept there. I tiptoed up the edges of the stairs quietly climbing without making a sound. I couldn't hear any kind of snoring. I didn't hear anything up there. I went through a few rooms, slowly and quietly opening the paper doors, checking inside. But I still couldn't find anyone around. To search more efficiently, I got down to the floor and pressed my right ear up to it. I could hear the television in the dining room, a low hum of perhaps boiling water. It was then I started to harbor some feelings of suspicion. This house wasn't right. It seemed like people had been there since the TV was on, but it wasn't normal for nobody around to be this early in the morning. I silently descended the stairs and went back into the dining room. I looked at the food scattered about, completely dried up rice, an overturned bowl of miso soup, the package for a side dish bought at the supermarket. I could tell Satoko had definitely been the one who made this. The food was far from Mion's perfection or Rena's gentleness, but it was sincere. Judging from how she cooked for me at the house and from the type and amount of side dishes, I deduced the meal was from last night. The number stamped to the food package read 830620. June 20th, 1983. That was yesterday. And there was food for two. Which meant that this last night's dinner and Satoko's uncle would have been there then. Stop it, Keiichi. Don't even think about saying the word impossible again. Anyway, her uncle was here last night. That much was the truth. He had found fault with Satoko's food, thrown the bowl of miso soup, and flung the rest everywhere. Hidden deep within my feelings of calm and composure was a lit flame of anger and a curse. I should have ever shown this man any mercy. I heard the sound again, the one from before, like a water boiler. What was it coming from? The first floor. But where? The bathroom, maybe? I could hear the noise coming from the other side of the frosted glass at the far end of the changing room. It had to have been the sound of the water boiler for the bath. Steam was enshrouding the glass door, and the heat from it was leaking into the changing room where I was standing too. My misgivings deepened. People didn't normally take baths like this early in the morning. If one did, then it would mean that in this house, time had been stopped ever since the moment last night. Was it being reheated? The water boiler in the bathroom had been active this whole time. I checked in the clothing basket and saw Satoko's familiar uniform stuffed in it. The uniform had stains and dried rice stuck to it, certainly not something she could wear today. It was probably from the miso soup at the dinner table yesterday. I looked hard at the frosted glass, but I couldn't see anything through all the steam. And then an electric surge ran through my mind, and a terrible premonition came over me. Could she? She couldn't possibly have been there since last night. That would be impossible! But no, in Himizawa right now, nothing was impossible. I gulped audibly and quietly pulled aside the glass door. Hot, steaming air burst out of the slight opening. The fan wasn't on in the changing room, so I went completely white with the steam. Just as hot vapor poured into the changing room, cooler air also flowed into the room with the bath, and just as I heard, due to being hit by that air, a very weak moan. That was all I needed to know who it was. Satoko! No answer. Satoko was in the bathtub, surrounded by a thick layer of rising steam. The top half of her body was leaning over the edge of the tub, and she was passed out. The water boiler kept on making whistling noises as if angered. I could see the gas flame through the small window. It was roaring at full force, completely blue. Satoko's entire body was boiled red and flaccid, as though her bones had melted away. She was almost like a doll, as she laid there unconscious. I wasn't sure how many seconds had passed as I stared in complete bafflement. I came back to my senses and promptly shut off the boiler. Then I dragged Satoko's small body off the bathtub. The water in it was as hot as the water in public baths. Was she in this boiling water for an entire night? She'll die! She'll die! Satoko's body was lighter than I expected as I laid her on the floor and wrapped her in a towel. Why didn't you just put her in clothes, Keiichi? I went back to the bathroom and opened up the vent, creating a path for the cool breeze to come through. Upon the breeze hitting her, Satoko moaned again. It'll be all right, Satoko. It's me, Keiichi. Keiichi, can you hear me? Keiichi? Satoko recognized me and muttered a response, but I couldn't really tell what she was saying. Her eyes were muddied and unfocused. I could tell she wasn't completely conscious. Upon closer inspection, her limbs and waist were twitching slightly. This was way worse than normal overheating. It was as dangerous. Didn't they call this heat stroke? Think, what would the teacher do if a girl passed out in the middle of summer during a marathon in the gym class or something? I turned on the water faucet in the kitchen all the way and soaked a towel in it. I took the cold towel and pressed it on Satoko's forehead. Satoko reacted harshly to the coldness and let out a muffled voice. For burns, right. You'd soak the burn spot using under running water. Then I could run the cold water in the shower and cool her off like that? No, if it was sudden, it wouldn't be good for her heart. She'd go into shock. I think I read that once before. This was about as much nursing I could possibly give her. Anything more than this would be too much for the likes of an amateur. What happened, Satoko? You're all right now? Your Nini will save you for sure. 5,039. 5,040. What was Satoko reciting under her breath? I brought my ear to her mouth to better make out the mysterious spell-like words she kept saying. At that moment, I understood what they were for. Satoko, you're counting! Why? People tell little kids in the bath to count to 100 a lot, right? Satoko was counting like that. But 5,039? You moron! How long were you supposed to count in your own bathtub? 10,000. I doubted my ears and doubted her common sense. 10,000! You're a freaking idiot! What kind of dumbass can count to 10,000? There's no way you could do that! You bowled to death before you got that far! Why were you? My uncle. Last night her uncle flew into a rage at the dinner she'd made, saying it stunk and it was unedible. Satoko didn't understand what on earth he meant. It wasn't much different than what she usually made for him. Maybe he hated the smell of the pickled vegetables she'd brought in particular. Her uncle then decided the stink was originating from Satoko and shouted at her she never took baths. And then he put Satoko in the boiling water and told her not to come out until she counted to. I'll kill you! Uh-oh. I snapped and exploded, raising the newspaper-wrapped hatchet. I stampeded through the house. I searched for anything, traces, signs, smells, vibrations, heartbeats. With a war cry, I raced up the stairs with such force I could have stomped a hole through them. I found the futon in the room I thought to be her uncle and was well aware he wasn't sleeping in it. I bashed it with the hatchet. Did he run into the closet? I busted the entire closet down, door and all. If he wasn't there, maybe there's a secret door. Any switches or levers in the walls here? I smashed in the wall after wall with the hatchet, crushing them. Dust rose in the air and broken pieces scattered about the floor. I smashed all the glass windows, too, for good measure. After I destroyed everything, beyond recognition in her uncle's room, my reason finally kicked in and suppressed my emotions. Anyway, her uncle wasn't in the house right now. I had to leave killing him until later. Right now, I had to do something about Satoko. I went back to the changing room. Satoko was still lying limp on the floor. There was nothing more than an amateur like me could do for her. I needed to take her to the clinic. At least give her clothes. Coach had treated me like a lunatic yesterday and tried to lock me up in the mental hospital. I never wanted to see his damn face again, but I still needed to go to the infirmary one more time. I needed to have the doctor take a look at Satoko. I thought about putting her in the dirty uniform lying in the laundry basket, but I had no experience dressing someone, so it'd be pretty difficult. Shit, I don't have time to be wasting here. I eventually gave up on her clothing on her and decided to carry her in the bath towel. Stupid Keiichi. The clinic was close to Satoko's house. It'd be way faster to carry her than to call 119 and get the ambulance. I threw the biggest towel I could find her and prompted her to stand. Can you stand? I'll carry you over to the clinic. Thank you. Her words sounded clearer than before. She started to come back. I cried tears of relief knowing she improved even a little bit. Then put her clothes on, you dumbass! Why didn't you do that? Satoko turned over so she was hiding on the face and then put up a weak struggle to get up on a knee. I smoothly swept her up and put her on my back. The towel I put on her seemed like it was about to fall off. The towel, it hurts. We'll be there soon. It won't be long, so stay strong. It didn't hurt one bit to carry Satoko. She was light, too light, but lightness actually made me uneasy. The hilly road to the clinic, which had never ever had difficulties with before, was now tortuous. Big beads of sweat formed on my brow, and at some point my breath had grown faint. The hatchet in my belt was heavy, and I considered leaving it, but I couldn't let it go, at least not while Satoko's uncle was still breathing. The signboard for the Irie clinic came into sight, but I quickly noticed something was odd, so I stopped. Several red revolving lights were still flashing at the clinic. 3 police cars were parked in the parking lot with their lights on. There didn't need to be much else to inform me something else had happened. I didn't want to see Coach, so I planned to leave Satoko in the clinic waiting room and give the receptionist a message. But with that police officer Oishi there, I couldn't go inside so carelessly. Alright. What's going on? Why are there so many police cars? I gently put Satoko down in the shade of the thicket. I don't know. I'll go see what happens, so you stay here for a moment. Leaving a lady in a place like this wearing nothing but a bad towel. Simply unforgivable. If you can still fire off those insults, you'll be fine. I'll be right back, I added. I overheard an officer wearing a necktie, probably the leader, and a white-robed doctor having a discussion about something. The doctor didn't seem to be Coach. It was one of those who Coach told to make tea yesterday. So you're the first one to find it since you were on morning duty, so then... What did it look like? He was sitting on the sofa in the head office. He looked like he was... There was a jug and an empty bottle of sleep medication he had at his desk, so you immediately thought he had tried to drink those pills. What else? His high temperature and incontinence indicated severe disturbance of consciousness. It seemed like a typical case of sleeping pill poisoning, so I immediately began to treat him, without calling the police or an ambulance. This is a hospital and I'm a doctor. Since his life was in danger, it's my job to treat him at once. Yes, I understand. Okay, what else? His breathing was in disarray, so I put him on the respirator. Also administered breathing stimulants. It had no effect, so I repaired a medical ventilator and... Right. So in other words, you did what you could, but it wasn't enough. That's it, right? You reported this as soon as he died? Yes. It was very unfortunate that we were unable to save him. Just on the radio, one of the police cars started to buzz, producing a broken mechanical voice. This is HQ! This is HQ! Komiyama, can you hear me? Over. Hello! This is Komiyama. We've come up with something. It looks like he took too many sleeping pills. No notes or anything. Or he got sleeping pill poisoning. What the heck were they talking about? Somebody did something at the clinic, but who? I wish Takano dead, as she died the next day. And yesterday I wish Coach was dead. Then, could he have... Did he use the sleeping medication regularly? I don't really know. Did he normally complain that he was tired or wanted to die? Well, Irie was normally so well himself. He never acted like that. So I was right. Irie. They were talking about Coach. Coach did that to himself. Why would he do that? There couldn't have been any reason he wanted to die. Sane. If I wanted someone dead, they'd die. That was the kind of world this was. Then what about Oishi? What happened to him? If people really died because I wanted them to, then something should have happened to him too. I've sent you back up. The chief wants you to leave the rest of them and get to searching for Oishi's car. Yes, sir. Please excuse me then. It looks like we're getting relieved here, so please leave everything as it is right now. Okay, I'm just gonna... okay. Alright, let's go. The officers nodded and split up into the patrol cars. Did you just say they were searching for Oishi's car? Searching for his car. That meant he had gone missing? Takano, Coach, and Oishi. When I wished for it, the very next day, they disappeared. No matter how angry you were when you said you wished someone was dead, it didn't normally happen. Everyone knew just wishing for it wouldn't make them dead, and that's why people would utter such curses so lightly. But the curses I uttered were being granted. At the time, hadn't even been walking, and yet I heard a footstep. And it wasn't the only one this time. They came from behind, and they stood right behind me, reaching a hand for my shoulder.
Would you mind telling me what's going on?
Satoko! Don't scare me like that!
I'm the one scared here. I prefer if you didn't shout so suddenly.
It was Satoko. Her eyes were still unstable, unfocused, but she seemed to at least be able to walk on her own now. She looked far better now compared to her earlier exhausted state. How do you feel? Are you better?
My head still hurts, but I can't stay outside looking like this forever.
She gave a smile, a show of courage, but her legs were still shaky. Anyway,
what on earth is going on?
From what I just heard the police talking about, Coach suddenly...
Huh?
Satoko was at a loss for words. Her face grew paler and paler, and I could tell she was doubting her own ears.
Keiichi, is that true? I didn't mishear you.
That's what I heard. They said that Yuri did something with the sleeping pills. Satoko went down on her knees and broke out in tears.
It can't be, Coach. He would never do that.
As I watched Satoko crying and crawling at the grass, I felt myself trapped by guilt and remorse. I got so angry that Coach was treating me like a madman yesterday, that he betrayed me, that I thought he'd be better off dead. But even Coach, who to me deserved to die, still must have had people who loved and respected him, like Satoko here. I worked myself to murder for Satoko's sake. I decided I wanted Satoko to be happy. But was that really all it took? Murder meant taking somebody's life. It meant making everyone attached to that person sad. In Satoko's uncle's case, of course nobody would be sad. So I didn't feel a sense of guilt at all. But Coach's death was different. I had wanted to make Satoko happy, and that had resulted in me inflicting a deep sadness upon her, hadn't it? But Coach killed him. He did it himself. It wasn't my... Satoko still hadn't stopped crying, but she seemed to be a little calmer now. Wiping her tears, she stood up. I'm sorry. The only thing I could think of was to say to her was an apology.
Why? Are you apologizing?
Yesterday I, got into a fight with Coach, and I thought that I wanted him to die. I wanted it so he really... Satoko looked at me dubiously for a few moments. Even her expression softened as she interpreted my words in her own way.
It isn't your fault, Keiichi. Coach was an adult too. He felt like there was something he had to give his life for and chose to do it after a lot of worrying and suffering. It's not anyone's fault.
She smiled a little, trying to comfort me.
I do not want to be like this forever. I want clothes.
Are you okay? Shouldn't you get someone at the clinic to...
I won't die from putting on my clothes before going.
Satoko readjusted her bath towel and started along the path. Her stride was wobbly, and it didn't look like she was recovered as much as she let on.
Rika's house. My clothes should be there. What's wrong, Keiichi?
Satoko noticed how I was hanging my head and spoke to me.
Despite how he might come off, Coach was still an adult, right? He would certainly not have done that after a petty fight with you, Keiichi. Please stop blaming yourself.
At first I thought it was a coincidence, but with 3 people now I couldn't discard the possibility. There was no such thing as impossible in this world. These past few days haven't made any sense.
What hasn't?
Satoko seemed to have been having trouble breathing, but she still listened to what I had to say. At the Watanagashi festival the day before last, you went home on the way there, right? And I went there, and I had a lot of fun.
So it would seem. I do apologize for getting so upset with you about it.
Satoko remembered how she blew up at me in the classroom yesterday and bowed to me a little. If I said I actually didn't go to the festival at all, would you believe me? Satoko looked at me confused. She couldn't help it, of course.
Of course I wouldn't believe you. What are you on about?
You wouldn't, right? I don't believe it either. I mean, I didn't go to the festival, but everyone's saying I hung out with them there. Nobody would believe it, right?
Are you being serious?
Yeah. Ever since the night of Watanagashi, everything's been messed up. These weird footsteps suddenly started following me everywhere. The blood drained from Satoko's expression.
Footsteps following you?
Yeah. I thought it was just my imagination at first, but they stayed with me. They're probably still there. I can't tell them apart now because of your footsteps, though. Satoko took a long and hard look at me. Maybe she was doubting my sanity. Coach did the same thing. I mean, why would he after telling him all this? The more I thought about it, the more I was unable to endure the feeling that my hatred for Coach had been meaningless. On the day of Watanagashi, I didn't go. I was doing something else. The whole time, I wasn't sleeping or unconscious or anything, so it's not possible that I walked to the festival in my sleep and forgot about it afterwards.
That is quite strange. Then how are you at the festival?
That's what I mean! I didn't go to the festival! No, I can't let myself get emotional. If I get agitated now, that'd be proving that there's something wrong in my head. Sorry. Well, nobody believes me, so yeah.
If that is what you say, Keiichi, then I will believe you. Then what?
That night, I saw Takano, and it felt like she was looking down on me. So I made a wish. A wish that she would die.
Takano does have that sort of air about her, doesn't she? I cannot say that I don't understand how you feel.
Do you know that Takano died? It happened yesterday. Apparently she was burned alive somewhere.
Is that true? She died?
I wished for her to die, and the next day she was dead. And Oishi from the police, too. Do you know him? That annoying detective guy. Satoko nodded a little. I heard from the police earlier, but apparently he went missing, and yesterday, actually, I wished that he would die.
Is all this true?
I'm not lying. I don't want to believe it either, but it's true. Takano, Coach, and Oishi, I wanted them dead, and they really died. For a little while, Satoko was at loss. A long silence ensued.
What a scary story. I would be sure not to get on your bad side, Keiichi.
And that's not all. There's something even stranger. It's about your uncle. Okay, so we're going to skip ahead. So you're seeing that I'm skipping ahead. I'm going to quick load back to the point that I'm skipping just in case. Okay. Wait, hold on. Okay, it should be okay for now. And then we're going to quick load. Sorry that there's an interruption every time. So.
I would rather you not talk about my uncle.
He was there yesterday, right? At your house.
Could we please stop talking about him? I don't want to.
It's impossible. He couldn't have been there.
I said stop talking about him. No.
That man couldn't have been there after the night of Watanagashi because I...
No more, please. No more about that man.
I killed him with my own hands. Even the cicadas stopped crying. Her face was streaked with tears. It stiffened even more as she looked at me in disbelief. On the night of Watanagashi festival, I killed your uncle, so it's impossible that he could have gone back home. But still, he went back, and last night he found fault with the dinner you made him and yelled all sorts of things at you and then basically boiled you in the bathtub. That couldn't have possibly happened. So I wanted to make sure that I actually killed him. So yesterday I went to dig up the corpse I buried, but the body wasn't there. Is that even possible? I killed him for sure, but there was no body. And he went home like nothing happened. Home to you, and that wasn't supposed to happen, was it? Satoko's entire body stiffened. She was shrinking away like there was someone in front of her about to hurt her. You probably think I've gone a little crazy, don't you? I don't blame you. I can't believe it myself.
Keiichi, I think you are very confused after all the people you wish were dead coincidentally died. You're just in shock at Coach, what happened? You're really upset. I think you should stay home from school from today and rest. I'll be fine, so please take care of yourself.
Satoko spoke like she understood me, but she also told me to go home. I could see the revulsion in her face. I knew she didn't want me around anymore. Once I show you the clinic, I'll go home. Your legs are still shaking, aren't they? It'd be terrible if you collapsed halfway there.
Really, I'm fine now. I do not want to expose myself to a man and more like this.
Okay, we're gonna stop right there. And hold on. I'm gonna continue skipping. So. I just need to make sure, please. Okay, we're gonna try it. I think it's a little halfway. I forget. But I just really want to be careful, so we're gonna quick load. She wallowed up the shrine steps, looking like she was about to fall. I immediately ran up to her and helped her stay on her feet. But then Satoko promptly jumped away from me. That outright rejection hurt a lot. When she got up to the top of the stairs, her breathing was ragged and she wasn't even looking at me. At this point, I was being ignored. Well, it was more like she didn't want to have anything to do with me. It was a feeling of rejection that hurt my heart more than any blade could have. This is the path I chose for her sake. To be treated like this at the end of it all was just so sad. And don't be naive, my Bara Keiichi. You never wanted to be repaid in the first place. You didn't do it so that Satoko would thank you. You did it so Satoko would be happy. And that was what led to this ending. Rika's house was a disaster prevention storehouse used by the town council. If you went past it a little further through the shrine grounds, you'd apparently reach the back of the assembly hall. Satoko was heading there, walking quickly, the gravel under her feet crunching as she went. Did she want to get there as soon as possible, or did she want to run away? I couldn't tell. Then I heard the vigorous sounds of the wings flapping. I turned around and saw a crow coming to Hinamizawa. I saw them a lot in my old town, though. On garbage day, they flocked to the trash collection points, peck through the bags with their beaks, drag out the contents, and have a feast. As I was remembering that, I saw a few crows flocking around the shrine's donation box. And I thought how terrible it was for somebody to leave a garbage bag in a place like that. The cicadas quieted. Breathing stopped. Thoughts ceased. Even time came to a halt. I ran over to where the crows were flocking. I ran there in order to drive the horrible idea out of my mind. I definitely hadn't wanted this. There's no way I would ever wish for this, even by mistake. This was not. When they noticed my vicious approach, the crows all flapped upwards, fleeing into the sky. When the crows' big black bodies flew away, they exposed the garbage bag. What had I seen there? The scream had escaped my throat before I understood what I was looking at. What was this? Satoko came over as well, realizing something had happened. And she looked over my shoulder, and she screamed as well. This wasn't... The garbage bag was crimson, dyed in fresh blood. Enough of this stupid roundabout way of saying it. That's right, yes, it was Rika! Our friend Satoko's best friend, always easygoing, clever as a cloud, but so cute you couldn't hate her. Our friend, Rika, Rika was stark naked. She was face up, limbs sprawled. Her eyes were like glass, just staring up into the sky, and Rika! Satoko broke down crying on the spot, and yet she couldn't approach her friend's remains. The crows had gone through the garbage bag and they dragged out an apple peel and spread it all over. No, crows, I couldn't do this. On the spot, I started vomiting. The sour taste had become a bitter one as I threw up over and over again. Rika, her stomach was cut wide open vertically, completely open. Rika! Crows couldn't have done this. And from her open stomach, her organs, her bowels were dragged out like children's toys left all over the floor. That unbelievable sight induced oxygen deprivation in my brain. Color left my vision, a pounding headache, dizzy, and I wanted to vomit. It was like the nightmarish remains of a ceremonial killing. Someone somewhere had killed Rika, brought her here, laid her bare with her limbs sprawled out, and then cut open her stomach and dragged her out. Her intestines, red and pink viscera, were sticking out of her cut. Her intestines were scattered in every direction, like it had been for fun. The entire ground was covered in an ocean of red and black. A few of the crows had hopped inside that ocean. They walked through the sea of blood, leaving bloody footprints, and those footprints, there were several still on Rika's body. Those sinister prints made it seem even more like a bizarre ritual killing. I may have wished for Takano and Coach and Oishi to die, but I didn't remember ever wishing for Rika's death. Yeah, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I stumbled backwards and stepped on a newspaper. A newspaper in a place like this. The newspaper was what was covering my hatchet. I kept it wrapped up on my belt in order to carry Satoko. That newspaper had fallen off. Sheesh, don't scare me like that. I bent up to pick it up, and then Satoko looked at me with such disbelief as I never seen and froze. She was looking straight at me, at the hatchet on my belt. Calm down, Satoko. This isn't what it looks like. Satoko, trembling madly, backed away. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't. Murder! She didn't care at all. She was exposing herself. She just trembled, tried to step back from the demon in front of her. Satoko, please calm down. Please relax. Satoko. No! Screaming weakly, Satoko began to run unsteadily. Run away, that is. Wait! Please wait, Satoko! You're wrong! That's not it! The way she ran away, it was so weak, so slow. So if I wanted to go after her, I could have caught up, but if I tried to grab Satoko's shoulder or something right now, she might actually go crazy. So I had to follow her and try to clear this up. You killed Takano and Coach and Oishi, didn't you? You killed my uncle, and then you killed Rika! You murderer! No! It wasn't me! I didn't kill her! What are you saying? You just said it yourself, did you not? You wanted them to die, and then everyone died, didn't they? Well, no. Just wishing that they were dead, that couldn't. You don't even remember what you did, do you? How can I trust a person like you? Didn't your memory of killing them just slip your mind? No. Maybe you're only pretending not to remember. Besides, what's that hatchet for? Try explaining that. It's for... See? Keiichi! You're a killer, aren't you? Why did you do it? You were a little mean, but you were fun. And kind it was. I even thought you might be my real Nini. Why did you turn into this? I might have been able to slowly each one of Satoko's questions at a time, but in this situation, explaining my innocence in such a short period of time was impossible. I mean, I didn't even really know if I was innocent anyway. Moment. At the very least, I killed Satoko's uncle, but there was nobody. I killed him! Without a doubt! At that point, I was far from innocent, and I wished Takano, Coach, and Oishi were dead, and that curse of mine was granted. When I wished for Takano to die, I didn't think of it as anything more than a normal thing you'd say to someone you didn't like, but then she actually did die, and I realized that if I wanted people to die, they would, and hoping it would happen again, I cursed Coach and Oishi to the same fate. So even ignoring Takano's death, Coach and Oishi were completely premeditated crimes. Was I a killer just like Satoko said? Was I unable to distinguish between illusion and reality and turn into a demon without remembering it, becoming a killer who carried out Oyashiro's curse? No, that couldn't be. It was impossible. Ah, damn it! That very word impossible was in Hinamizawa right now. How many freaking times have I said that word the past 3 days? Satoko had started crying again and was walking unsteadily. At first, it felt like she was still running, but now it was like she was walking away crying from someone bullying her. Why? Why did things turn out this way? Why? If there was an answer to that, then I wanted to know it too. Why? Why had it turned out like this? After Nini went away, I was lonely for a long time, and then Keiichi transferred to our school, and everyone was happy again. It was fun. Every day was beautiful. Yeah, she was right. Those days were bright and beautiful, and yet, after that, Satoko and I shouted the exact same thing. How did it turn out like this? The cicadas were sneering at the spectacle. our strange game of tag. Shut up, shut up, shut up! Eventually I heard the murmuring of a stream. The forest parted, and a suspension bridge appeared. Satoko was crossing dangerously, wobbling as though she might fall at any moment, and I stepped onto the bridge and swayed a lot, causing Satoko to stagger and fall on the spot. Satoko, are you okay?
Don't come near me! You murderer!
Satoko shouted. Her hatred was made very clear. It was sad, as if words could cut, and this warmth flowing from my eyes would have been blood for sure.
Why did you turn this out this way, Keiichi? I really liked you.
I wanted to go up to her and give her a hand, but the distance between us was uncrossable. If I got any closer, Sadako would start shouting again and say things that would hurt me deeply again, so I couldn't approach any closer than this. Sadako, I don't know how things turned out like this either, but I can say this. I wasn't the one who killed Rika. At least that is true.
Please stop being so absurd. How do you expect me to believe anything someone who can't even rely on his own memories has to say?
I tightened my hands into fists. This was mortifying. I wasn't crazy. Hinamizawa was crazy ever since I wandered into it, lost on that one night. This insane world where I was at the festival when I wasn't, and the uncle I killed was alive, where death would just come by wishing for it. It was this world's fault! Mune and Rena started acting strangely, and they were possessed by something too. And Coach wouldn't believe anything I had to say, and even Sadako, who I should have protected, was yelling at me like this. Was the price for killing a man supposed to be this high? Was I really going to be forced to stay in such a bitter world? I did the right thing! At least I wanted to! So then, why? I hated it. Every time I asked why, the days Sadako and I enjoyed in peace went so wrong. Sadako, please believe me. I'm not a murderer.
Then what is that hatchet for? Can you give me a convincing explanation for that?
Is this hatchet scaring you? Okay, I'll throw it away. That's what you want, right? Sadako didn't nod, but she seemed to be in agreement with the proposition. I clumsily took the hatchet out of my belt and dropped it over the side of the bridge into the stream below. There, it's gone. Now, you listen to me, right?
You think I'll let my guard down just because you got rid of your weapon? Keiichi, you're strong. It'd be easy for you to strangle me with your bare hands.
Like hell I would ever want to kill Sadako. You idiot! Then what should I do? Should I put my hands on my head?
Yes, why don't you? Please, put your hands on your head and face the other way.
It was a cunning plan, much like the ones he used during club activities. Putting my hands down on my head and turning away would mean I couldn't attack Sadako very easily. I immediately acquiesced to her request, since it would make her feel better. Is this alright? Please listen to what I have to say. Sadako stood up and then carefully approached me from behind. And then she actually came up right behind me. She was so close, and yet I was so sad that I wasn't allowed to turn around.
I think I sort of understand that this isn't your fault, Keiichi.
Huh?
I think probably you've just been possessed by something evil. Until before I thought Keiichi was a killer, but I know now, after looking at your eyes.
I could hear that Sadako was still crying, but her voice was gentle just the same.
Keiichi could never kill anyone. Something simply possessed his body and made him do evil things.
Was she speaking literally right now? Or was she trying to admonish me? I couldn't tell.
Come to think of it, maybe they were possessed just like Keiichi. At the time, I was only thinking I would be killed, so I didn't think about it. But now I understand. That was the work of something evil that possessed you.
Sadako? What are you... It was less like she was talking to me, and more like she was talking to herself, like she was confessing at my back.
I understand, it isn't like I haven't experienced it myself.
Sadako's voice started to become mixed with sobs. Her pained voice tore at my heart, but I didn't know what Sadako was talking about.
I climbed to the top of the ritual storehouse once. It was a few years ago.
Okay, give me a moment. Satoko was playing hide and seek at the shrine grounds. She climbed on top of the roof of the storehouse for the ritual implements, which everyone said not to go near, and hid. Then Satoko saw that she could get in through a window meant for ventilation. For Satoko, the word curse was plenty scary, but she was more curious about what was inside the unknown storehouse. She removed the grating on the window, which was already hanging off, slid her small body into it, and climbed down inside. It was too dark to see much, but after descending, she realized just how high up she had been. Despite the darkness, she could see a few things from her around, thanks to the faint light coming in from the air window. And to her disappointment, it was just a regular old storehouse. She tried to leave, but the door was locked up tight from the outside and was made not to open from within. She'd have to go out through the ventilation window she came out from, but the window was high on the wall. There was no way she'd be able to climb back up. Satoko desperately tried not to cry and racked her brain thinking of a way to get up there. There were a lot of birdcage-looking things hanging from the chains from the ceiling. She took the hanging chains and strung them along the wall. If she climbed up the bundle of chains, she might be able to manage to climb up the ventilation window. There was nothing else she could do, so she had to try. And try she did. It was dark and creepy, and she didn't want to stay there forever. The more she thought about that, the more she panicked. She climbed through the bundle of chains. Satoko could hear the clinks and clans of everything reeking under her weight. And then, just as her hand reached the window, one of the metal fixtures she used to stick the chains on the walls flew off. The chains all began to pull loudly and furiously every which way. Spurred on by the sound behind her, she managed to get back onto the roof from the window. Because of the weight of the flailing bundle of chains, the other fixtures broke, and one of the big bird cages hanging from the ceiling fell to the floor with a huge noise. Under it was the image of Oyashiro, his vessel. The cage took off one of the arms and trapped it some other implements beneath it. It didn't take very long for her to grow scared of what she had done. The deafening noise could be heard from the rest of the shrine grounds. A few other children heard it and gathered around, and of course Rika was one of them. Then Rika's father, the shrine priest, with an angry look, ran over. And then, as for what happened next, it was painful to remember. The only one who knew where Rika's parents kept the key to the ritual storehouse was Rika, so he scolded her, saying that this happened because Rika pulled a prank and hid me in there. He was very scary and menacing. Just looking at him was enough to frighten anyone. He exposed Rika's back and took a strangely shaped ritual cane or something and struck her with it several times. Rika's words at the time, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." That pitiful voice. I still can't get it out of my head. I should have said it was me. I should have said so to save my best friend from that false accusation, without being afraid of Rika's father's terrible temper. Rika gritted her teeth and cried at the crime she didn't remember doing. Ever since then, the world had been strange. I know I understand. This is Oyashiro's curse. His judgment for messing up this ritual storehouse and forsaking my best friend. Okay, give me a moment. I gotta make sure. Give me a moment. Alright. I know this is Oyashiro's curse for his... Oh wait, shit, I messed up. Hold on. I know, I understand this is Oyashiro's curse. His judgment for messing up the ritual storehouse. And for forsaking my best friend. Oyashiro's curse. My father and mother, too. They vanished in that muddy stream. My mean aunt died, too. But then Nini, who loved me more than anyone, ran away from home. And then Keiichi transferred it, and I thought I'd finally got my fun life back. But this time Keiichi was possessed. And even Rika got killed. There was something I heard once. Oyashiro, when he really curses someone, he doesn't kill the
not right away. He goes in the order of your closest friends, and after killing them all, he kills that person last. So, Keiichi, the curse got you too. I'm sure that Rena and Mio will be cursed next, and then they'll kill and be killed. No! No more! No!
Calm down, Satoko. There's no curse. Nobody's trying to torment you. When I turned around, I was thrust away with amazing force. Given my hands were awkwardly placed on my head, I couldn't take the fall and lost my balance. I'd been pushed not onto the bridge, but to the side. Toward the stream. No, this can't be happening! Okay, we're gonna turn this on now. As one last miracle, I was allowed to grab a cord hanging from the bridge. Far below me was the stream. We were pretty high up, and below were the rocks of all sizes. If I fell, it clearly wouldn't be pretty. The entire bridge was tilting under my body's weight. My frail little grip probably wouldn't last another minute before my fingers had to let go. Satoko! Satoko! I didn't understand myself what I meant by shouting her name then. Was I asking her to save me? Or was I asking her why she did this? Finally, everything came back into focus, and I saw Satoko, and I was surprised at what an odd expression she had. It was the first time I'd seen it. It was the expression of righteous anger meant only for those who needed to die.
Die, you murderer! Give him back! Give back my Nini! Give back Rika and Mommy and Keiichi!
As she screamed, she jerked the bridge to and fro. She didn't have to do that. I was going to fall anyway.
I won't lose to the likes of you! I won't lose to some stupid curse! I'll never ever lose to you! You took everyone! I will never lose to you, not ever!
Satoko, please, just let me say one thing. I don't know what my face looked like at the time, but it seemed like it was enough to quell Satoko's agitation. I know that what I did isn't exactly praiseworthy. No, in fact, maybe I should have never done it at all, but I did it because I wanted you to be happy. Please, just believe that.
You! At the very end! You're still pretending to be Keiichi!
Satoko didn't seem to have any more desire to listen to what I had to say, or for that to happen at the very end like this was tragic. I didn't do any of it so you would praise me. If it made you happy, that was all that mattered. We were nothing. Without your smile, we were nothing. So after I disappear, please smile. If you can get on with your new life by my dying, then please, just smile. Can't you at least promise me that?
Stop speaking! Don't use Keiichi's mouth like that! Fall down! Die!
And those were the last words Satoko ever said to me. Hold on. I gotta make sure. Okay, give me a moment. Give me a moment, okay? And those were the last words Satoko ever said to me. Those sad, tragic, and altogether unrewarding words. What on earth was I? My desire to make Satoko happy ended up like this. Where did I first go wrong? What was the mistake I made? When did I make it? Was I the crazy one, or was it Hinamizawa? Even after all this, I thought I wasn't crazy at all. It was this eerie world that was crazy. This world I'd accidentally wandered into that one night. Because that fun world where I never doubted all those crazy times we had as a club would go on forever. It couldn't possibly have transformed into such an abnormal world. That fun world wouldn't have ever ended with this, with Satoko pushing me to my death. In the end, I was going to be swallowed up by this crazy world and disappear. No, I'd probably already disappeared. Yes, probably. On the night of Watanagashi. I'm sure that in the world I really belonged to, I'd vanished that night and everyone was worried. It was laughable that I'd taken this long to figure it out. I wasn't around anymore. Oh, Yashiro's curse on the 5th year, with Satoko's uncle dying and me disappearing. In the real world, Satoko had already been freed. Maybe my friends were all lamenting my disappearance and valiantly trying to get back on their feet. And even though they were down to 4 people, the club would reopen. And they would have a good time without me, waiting for the day I would come back. I'm sorry, everyone. I couldn't come back home, but this is what I wished for. It was my wish for Satoko's smile and my duty as her nini. At this point, there'll be nobody left to torture you, because Satoshi and I, it took 2 years, but we succeeded. That annoying toothy smile of yours, we wanted to see it one more time. My pain wasn't gentle or merciful. It was a sharp pain, violent, powerful, and ruthless. What little compassion I had receded in the span of that moment. And now I could die. I could say goodbye to this insane world. Farewell, crazed Hinamizawa. Thanks for giving me the psychic power to kill people whenever I wanted. If you'll still allow it, I'll wish for one last thing. The death of this very world, of this crazed Hinamizawa, so that nobody would ever again have to find themselves lost here again. Oh. I didn't end up crying because as much because I had to keep interrupting myself, so oops. Alright. Let's read the tips. Research notes. Oyashiro. Nobody really knows what characters to use to write Oyashiro. Knowing this is hard, partly because of depending on the time period, he's been called with various titles with subtle changes to his name. Nobody knows the real one. The only thing all periods should agree on is that the 4 syllables O, Ya, Shi, and Ro are always used. There is a theory stating that the shrine, or Yashiro, dedicated to Oyashiro itself, became an object of worship, and people began to call it Oyashiro, or Lord Honorable Shrine, but this doesn't make a bit of sense. I don't know whether this is related, but people say that Furude family, the most respected bloodline in terms of worshipping Oyashiro, actually inherited his blood. In the legend of the Furude family passes down, for 8 generations in a row, the firstborn child is a girl. The 8th daughter will be the reincarnation of Oyashiro. If we go by this legend, the characters used for Oyashiro's name should be O for honorable, Ya for 8, and Shiro for generation. These characters' assignments are simply something I thought up. There is no way to verify it. If this is true, then Oyashiro would have been named as such in the assumption he would come again. The second coming of an object of worship can be seen in several religions, so this isn't unusual, but a few of these religions call the second coming of their object of worship a day of judgment, or something along those lines. We must not forget they mean it to be the end of the world. Furude Rika, pampered and loved dearly by the elderly folk in the village. The rumors say she is the 8th generation and Oyashiro. I do not know the family tree of the Furudes, but at the very least I can confirm that for the past 2 generations, the first child has been a girl. Furude Rika watches over Hinamizawa. If the village were ever to lose her protection, what would happen? Would peace between man and demon be lost? Would it once again create a hellish landscape where man-eating demons run rampant? A gruesome feast of the demons who suddenly remembered how delicious the weak humans were, who would only cry and scream and run for their lives. What would that look like? Just imagining it is enough to make my heart pound with excitement. So, research notes. This is most likely Takano's research notes because, of course, Takano would be into these things. Because she's been writing research notes. Alright, let's continue. We're gonna finish this tonight. We're almost done. My head was pounding. The sky was bright. It was cold, too. It hurt. Each sensation I felt led to a new and different one awakening. When I came to, I was lying face first on a dry riverbed. A few body parts hurt a lot. The skin over a bunch of my joints was torn, turned blue or red or oozing blood. I could tell that my bones were in pain from the agony I felt whenever I moved. I looked up and saw how high the bridge from which I had fallen was. Considering I dropped from there, it was a miracle that I could open my eyes again. Right next to me was a broken upside-down car seat, which I guess some pranksters had brought here. Maybe this thing had been conveniently lying under me, allowing me to escape instant death. Miraculous. Of course, I didn't know whether this miracle was fortunate or unfortunate. I failed to die, and now I'm still stuck in this world. How long had I been unconscious for it? The sun was high in the sky, so it only looked like 1 or 2 hours had passed, but my body's sluggishness didn't make it feel like it was all so short a time had gone by. Mentally, it felt like I'd been asleep here for a decade. Ow! Ugh. The more feeling returned to my body, the more pain flooded in. It hurt so much, it would have been better not to have woken up. I need to get a doctor. Yeah, the coach's clinic. The term coach's clinic brought memories back one after another. Memories I wish I hadn't recalled. Satoko was no longer on the bridge. She would have returned to Hinamizawa by now, and she would put on some clothes, go to the clinic, get a checkup, and report on how crazy I had seemed. The police were waiting for me without a doubt. This time they'd find out for real I killed her uncle and arrest me, or would they just send me to a mental institution like I thought they might? Still, I didn't care which it was. Please, someone stop all this pain. You can boil me or cook me after that, whatever you want. I began to walk unsteadily, just limping along. I went downstream and then through the animal trail-like path in the woods. I walked haphazardly, searching for a path I knew. Eventually, I finally came across a familiar road and set off toward the clinic. Not to my house, but to the clinic, which had treated me like a lunatic. It was hot and humid. There was no wind and the air was stagnant. For a while now, I've been smelling a terrible stench of burnt eggs. It made my face scrunch up, and then at last I noticed something. I couldn't hear any cicadas. It was the first time I'd heard Hinamizawa be so utterly silent. When I thought back, it seemed like birds always chirped in the morning. Cicadas always cried loudly in the afternoon, and the Higurashi always rose up in the chorus in the evening. Always something to hear. I couldn't hear a single insect. The only thing I could hear was the rustling of the wind brushing the treetops. I'd never experienced this sort of quiet before. Even the only sound coming from the trees lacked life somehow. The trees were yellow. The many leaves were spread on the ground despite it being too early for autumn. Even the weeds that had been growing so persistently at the side of the road had been yellowed, brown, and lost their vigor. Only the sunlight itself was the June of the Hinamizawa I knew, and yet it seemed like the seasons had switched all of a sudden. Looking at the fallen leaves and rotting weeds led me to spot a few small insects turned on their backs. They weren't moving. They were corpses. I looked closer to see the insect corpses scattered all around, like a child had collected them as samples and strewn them about. The stench! What was it? It was terrible, like burnt eggs, combined with all the bug corpses, leaves falling from the trees in summer. Had someone sprayed herbicides or pesticides around here? Even at school, we apparently fumigate. They call it pest disinfection or something, once or twice a year. I hadn't run into anybody despite how bright it was outside. It was mid-afternoon, and yet it felt like I was sauntering around at midnight. Well, with the smell, nobody would want to be walking outside. Just what was this, anyway? There was no sound, no noise, not even a breath. Hinamizawa was silent. The school would come into view right after turning this corner, and yet I couldn't hear any commotion at all. None of the shouts or grunts that children always made. It was simply quiet. Just as pretending to ignore the silence had grown intolerable, I saw the school. And finally I heard something. It was the sound of a few trucks. There were very tall trucks parked in the schoolyard idling. Around 10 workers in raincoats were unloading things from their trucks. It was hot and humid even in my casual clothing. I couldn't imagine how unbearable that must have been. And then I remembered our school was rented from the Forest Service field office building, wasn't it? It wasn't strange at all for Forest Service trucks to be doing some kind of work in the schoolyard. Besides, what did forest rangers do anyway? I felt bad for them having to work in such heat, with such a stench about. They were taking colorful cargo out of the truck and lining it out of the schoolyard. They were containers, fairly large ones inside multicolored patchwork bags, heavy too. They were being carried in pairs. They lined them up very neatly like tuna at a riverside fish market. Several dozens, hundreds of tuna were completely filling the fairly high schoolyard up. I forgot my pain for a little while, captivated by this big forest ranger job I had never seen before. As I stood there watching in a daze, the people in raincoats working on the other side noticed me. One of them pointed me out and they shouted a few things back and forth. I thought they might yell at me for getting in their way, so I decided to leave post-haste. But then 2 trucks drove up behind me. I stepped aside and they entered the schoolyard, sheets covered in their trunks, but I could tell they were completely full. As they passed, there was an awful smell that made me want to choke. It wasn't the same burnt smell as before, but an even worse one, like rotten crab meat. What on earth was it? I'd been enshrouded in one terrible stench after another all day. Then certain white letters emblazoned on the side of the passing trucks caught my eye. Ground Self-Defense Forces. What? Self-defense forces, like the army. Why was the army in the schoolyard? Hey you! Where did you come from? Suddenly someone slapped me on the shoulder from behind. I turned around, and a canopied SDF Jeep was parked there. The SDF person had a green raincoat and a gas mask like in movies, carrying a compressed air cylinder. He didn't look like normal. There wasn't an inch of exposed skin anywhere. Where did I... When I tried to talk, I stretched a wound on my head. It made the SDF people exchange glances. I couldn't see their face through the mask, but they seemed surprised. Do you live in Inamizawa? Can you tell us your name and address? Well, yeah, I sort of live here. My name is Keiichi Maibara. Oh, and my address, Inamizawa Shishibone. After seeing them tell me my name and address without hesitation, one of the SDF people watching from the Jeep started talking into a radio. Base, do you read? Base, do you read? We have a 402 survivor discovered. I repeat, we have 402. We have found a survivor. He's in front of the Forest Service office. This is base. We copy. Secure the survivor at once. What is his status? Healthy. Wounded all over, but not fatally. He can walk on his own. We'll send him to HQ for safety. I was prepared to go along with the police, but the SDF, I couldn't help but think it seemed a little much. They urged me into the back of the Jeep, and then they told me about this gigantic to put on the gigantic gas mask. I did so, and one of the troops fiddled around with it, strapping it tightly onto me. It was heavy, hard to see out of, hot, and difficult to breathe. Just looking out of the world through the lenses made it lose its sense of reality. My breathing sounded like some giant monster through the mask. At this point, I had no idea what was happening. With such trepidation, I asked the trooper adjusting my mask, excuse me, has something happened? Where were you? What were you doing? Hey, don't answer a question with more questions. I was the one asking you. I, fell from the rope bridge way back in the mountains. I think I passed out on the riverbed. I don't actually know what day it is. Today is June 22nd, 1983, Wednesday. That surprised me. Satoko pushed me off the bridge on Tuesday the 21st. That meant I'd been asleep on that riverbed for an entire day. Forgive me for asking again, but did something happen? Why is the SDF here? Is this a drill? Had my question been that difficult for him? None of the troopers would answer me. One in the driver's seat, talking on his own radio, turned on the vehicle. He turned on the dial, and some broadcast station and another came in. I started to listen to the voice of the radio announcer I was familiar with. It was conducted at the Prime Minister's office. In regards to the questions from the press that the SDF not responding to the disaster promptly was related to the unprecedented, unheard of catastrophe, Chief Cabinet Safety Okuno had this to say. And so, I believe that once the SDF received the dispatch from the order from the prefectural governor, they responded promptly. According to him, the SDF was prompt to respond to the crisis after receiving their orders. He implied that it was the prefecture's responsibility for taking too long to comprehend the situation. When did the governor who requested the SDF's dispatch actually become aware of the outbreak of such an unprecedented catastrophe? And did he not invite further damage because of the time lost before he sent the request for disaster relief? In other words, because of the bureaucracy. We are awaiting further instructions and investigations in the matter. That was Mr. Okada recording from the Prime Minister's official residence. At this point, we can take another look at the political response following this disaster. In the middle of the night between June 21st and June 22nd, a large disaster broke out in the Hinamizawa village Shishibane. The details has not been investigated yet, but there has been an eruption of volcanic gas from somewhere in the Hinamizawa area. The gas was relatively heavy, and as it spewed out, it began to flow. That flow went along with the small river and headed down into Hinamizawa village. After a few hours, it had covered the entire region. It happened in the middle of the night, 2 to 4 a.m. Every home and household in the village was afflicted. With the most residents asleep, it is thought all died without noticing the crisis. The catastrophe striking in the middle of the night caused its detection to come too late, but there is still one small opportunity to have noticed it. 3 a.m. A news dealer's shop in Okinomiya had sent a vehicle carrying the morning newspaper to its branch office in Hinamizawa. Usually the shop would be contacted upon the vehicle's arrival, but this morning that didn't happen. The news dealer's shop made repeated calls but got no response. The shopkeeper sent his eldest son to check on things, but they lost contact with him as well. It is extremely regrettable. If they had contacted the police or fire department at this point, it is highly possible the situation would have turned out more positively. At the very least, it's possible that a portion of the village might have been saved from a tragic annihilation. 6 a.m. Residents in the area in the same region began to continuously call 119 to report the smell of rotten eggs, dizziness, nausea, and headaches. The fire department received the same reports, all from the same confined region. They speculated a truck loaded with chemicals may have caused an accident and reported to the local police. 6:30 a.m. Contact was lost with a patrol car on the duty in Hinamizawa area after the officer reported the smell of rotten eggs. The local police considered the possibility of a large-scale disaster involving highly lethal gas and reported it to the prefecture and prefectural police at 7:15 a.m. 8 a.m. The governor was traveling to nearby prefectures for inspections, so in accordance with regulations, the prefectural environmental disaster prevention chief was provisionally escalated to director general and set up a disaster countermeasures office. However, without contacting the governor, the countermeasures came too late. As has recently been pointed out by citizens group, his trip with the honorary diet members to inspect other prefectures was based solely on good relations. It is rumored they preoccupied themselves with a drinking party. Sources closer to him claimed the governor had been drinking all night and had gone to sleep in a drunken state. He was completely drunk when the environmental chief phoned him as well, and apparently he would not get him to pay any attention to the matter. And so it took about an hour for the governor to sober up and gain an understanding of the situation and gather information. No, not as extreme as the governor's case, and the environmental chief who became director general in the governor's absence will likely also be questioned about his negligence. In addition, without any procedures in place on the prefecture's side that predicted catastrophes this massive, they would always react too late, and that it ended up being fatal. 9:12 a.m. On the advice of the prefectural police, the governor requested a disaster relief mission from the SDF. By the time the chemical defense unit equipped with protective equipment arrived on the scene, 8 hours had already passed since the incident's outbreak. Whatever the case may be, it was unfortunate this happened while everyone was sleeping in the middle of the night. Had the same disaster occurred during the day, it likely would have been entirely different. All households in the Hinamizawa village region were wiped out. There were over 1,000 victims. The SDF is still confirming the situation on the ground, but the results are predicted to only increase that number. Here with us in the studio today is Mr. Fujiwara, a professor at the university who is well acquainted with volcanic disasters. Doctor, can such a sudden and horrible outburst of poisonous gas actually happen? It isn't at all unusual for this to happen right around the craters, at least. Japan is a volcanic nation, so it has many active volcanoes. There has always been a disaster of hazardous gas around any of these craters. It is generally a rule among mountain climbers not to go near them. Does that mean the rotten egg smell that visited Hinamizawa village was a normal sort of gas from volcanic craters? Judging how it smelled like rotten eggs, we think it was hydrogen sulfide, a gas is seen particularly frequently in accidents compared to other volcanic gases. If it is dense, it becomes extremely dangerous. Hinamizawa village is very far away from the craters of any volcanoes. Can hydrogen sulfide be generated from even a place not close to a crater? I don't know all the details. I can't say anything concrete, but in other countries there are records of gas eruptions due to magma buildup under hot springs. It is an extremely rare event, but it is possible for such a thing to happen even in a region not near craters. Thank you very much, Doctor. We appear to have an announcement for the Japan Defense Agency. Miss Morikawa, are you there? Yes, I am at the Japan Defense Agency. The agency has just made an announcement regarding the source of the Hinamizawa village gas disaster. Analysis from the Ground Self-Defense Force Department of Chemistry has found the gas was a mixture of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. Ms. Morikawa, do you know whether this gas is still erupting or spreading to nearby areas? According to the SDS 9th Division, who are currently engaged in the rescue operation Hinamizawa Village, the gas density is steadily decreasing. They announced the damage will not spread. However, it does not change the fact that the surrounding areas are still in danger and that a very strict observation must be maintained. That was Morikawa from the Japan Defense Agency, and now that we have a report from the state of those who have been made to evacuate the Okinomiya area, Shimoshi Nozaki Elementary School is one of the evacuation sites, and we're currently having a recorder on the scene. Wait, what? Inside the jeep, clambering and bouncing along the rough road, none answered my muttered question. An unprecedented catastrophe had destroyed Hinamizawa in a single night? Where was Hinamizawa Village anyway? Some place deep in the mountains, right? Names of places I heard on the radio were always like that. They were all places I'd never heard of, much less knew the locations of. Wiped out. What does that mean? Don't they usually just say how many people died and how many were injured? How many people were alive? Where did people evacuate to? Eventually, we came to view of Coach's clinic. For the first time, I saw the flag of Japan hanging on a pole outside. Japan's circular sun hung down as though exhausted. Many SDF tents were set up in the clinic's big parking lot. Many strict security vehicles were parked there as well. When they saw the jeep coming, men in white clothing and gas masks came running out of the clinic, frantic, carrying its stretcher. You're going to be all right. How do you feel? Can you walk? Yes. Ow. Because of my ows, they forced me to lay in the stretcher anyway. People who seemed like doctors were looking at me and notifying the others of my condition via radio. Multiple wounds, high possibility of fractures and internal damage, large laceration in the head, pupils normal, but even without bleeding from the fundus, brain damage is still possible. And then, from the clinic's entrance, people lying on stretchers were being brought outside to replace me. Judging by their clothing, they were from Hinamizawa. That's how I knew they were victims. They brought stretchers in front of a truck. Two troops holding shoulders and legs like some kind of baggage picked them up and threw them into the trunk. What? In the trunk of the truck, people's bodies piled in heaps. They were just like baggage, and that told me they were already nothing but shells. At that moment, I remembered all those colorful sacks filling the trunks, and them lined up in the schoolyard like a fish market. Hundreds of empty shells, corpses, 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 corpses! You jackasses, don't just throw the victims in like that! They lived here! The troops carrying the sacks answered me with a humble salute. The world didn't need this insane version of Hinamizawa. My final wish. Again, it was granted. I didn't understand anything anymore. None of it mattered. I wished. I cursed. And then it happened the next day. And please, tomorrow morning, let me die. That insane night. It's still going on. Please. Please end it already. Hey! He's lost consciousness! Shout his name! Quickly! Maibara! Can you hear me? If you can hear me, just blink. Maibara! 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 Suddenly the world didn't matter to me anymore. I wasn't interested in their cries. His breathing stopped! Get his respiratory tract open! Use CPR! Make him live! Damn it! Damn it! No more! No more dead people! Nobody deserves to die! Don't kill him! Don't kill him! I could hear the voices of a man crying and screaming in my ears. Nobody deserves to die. Those words came from his heart. They were so commonplace. And they soaked into my heart, too. Maybe it was a mistake to take someone's life, even if it was to save Satoko. If this is the price I had to pay, this horrible tragedy, then this is a little much, Oyashiro. Why? Why did you never punish me? Come to think of it, Satoko said something. Oyashiro's actual curse never goes for the target at first, but kills everyone they love before that. Oyashiro's curse. It was a convenient excuse I told myself at the very end. That it wasn't my curse that destroyed it, but Oyashiro's. Given that I was in the stretcher, this next bit might have been obvious. But last of all, I realized one thing. Yeah. Today, I had not heard footsteps following me. Even once. And now, I was liberated, as the cries of the Higurashi I couldn't have been hearing filled my mind. Their tearful ensemble was the only funeral march I had. June 22nd, 1983, early morning. A widespread disaster occurred in Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone Prefecture. Volcanic gas, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide erupted in Onifuchi Swamp, one of the Hinamizawa area's water sources, and spread through the entire village. There were 1,200 victims. 20 have gone missing. The catastrophe was unprecedented, forcing local governments to evacuate approximately 600,000 people. According to later investigations, magma pools and hot springs were uncovered directly under Onifuchi Swamp. The gas that gushed from it was determined to be the cause of the disaster. In addition, directly from after the incident broke out, many came forth claiming this disaster was a curse based in Hinamizawa village legends, first sparking a wave of chaos. There are apparently local legends of a curse spreading in miasma, destroying the village, and some scholars believe it was a similar gas disaster. Something, something, something. Oops. More extreme periodicals suggested this was an extension of a string of freak death incidents that had been happening recently. La la la. Okay. Relatives of Hinamizawa's disaster complained of sickness afterwards and hospitalized. Some died under unknown causes, causing some further opinions. On top of that, several relatives professing to possessed by Oyashiro's curse, they had perished in strange ways. The impact of the disaster was on the entire nation can no longer be ignored, with wild visions of terrible toxic gas sneaking around the village in the middle of the night killed people across the country, causing a deadly stream of people complaining of insomnia, difficult breathing, headache, dizziness. Some people who identified themselves as being obsessed by it began doing odd things. Most of these were mistakenly attributed by tabloid presses, but afterwards some even began to call the mental issues arising from Hinamizawa tragedy the Hinamizawa syndrome. The Hinamizawa village region, the object of all kinds of rumors and speculation, is currently closed off, and even flying overhead is prohibited. The prohibition at one point undone as a result of the decrease in the gas density, but that autumn another gas burst was confirmed, leading to the area being cordoned off again. Word is that the area is sound asleep while traces of former life intact. Only one survivor remains, my brother Keiichi, age 1, who lived at Hinamizawa village. At this time of rescue, he had some trouble breathing due to fluid buildup in his lungs, but as a result of life-saving procedures, he was kept alive. He is currently in a general hospital somewhere in the prefecture. The press has been asking for him for some time, but all interviews are being refused. What did he see in Hinamizawa? What happened between June 21st and June 22nd in Hinamizawa village? Today he remains silent, unwilling to speak of it.
Whoa! Somebody survived! Great Hinamizawa disaster, miraculous, I can't read that. Jiro Tomitake, real name unknown, possibly, okay, Miyo Takano strangled to death in Gifu, okay. Kurado Oishi went missing during investigation. Katsuya Kumatani went missing during investigation. Kyosuke Irie, okay. Furude Rika possibly murdered at the shrine. And gas disaster, miraculous, outbreak. Reina Ryugu died in June 22nd, Great Hinamizawa disaster. Miyo Sonozaki, Oreo Sonozaki, Hojo Sadako went missing. Hojo Tepe, Maibaro Ichiro, Aiko Maibara, Daiki Tomita, Suguru Kuramara, Rumiko Chie, Kichiro Kimiyoshi, Yukikazu Kameda. Whoa, him too. Tatsuyoshi Kasai died in the victim's hospital on August. Shio Sonozaki, Maibaro Keiichi, that happened to him. Diagnosed with mental disorder and all that stuff, okay. Higurashi when they cry. I can't read all this really fast. Okay, so yeah. What is with the weird language thing? I can't read all of that. Was that on purpose or something? Ah, BT. That is Ryukishi's best friend.
I remembered hearing something about something happening to him when he was writing Neko, and it affected how he wrote it, the story at the end. Sorry I had to censor so much. Well, at least it wasn't too bad for me, even though I had to censor it and ruin, like, the rhythm and everything. But I'll edit it in post. 2003, late summer. An elderly couple living in Osaka Prefecture discovered a cassette tape while organizing possessions of their son who passed away 8 years ago. Their son went missing and his fishing boat capsized in 1985. He was 47 at the time of his death. 8 years later, in 2003, they began to organize their son's remains in order to organize their minds and came across the cassette tape. From 1975 to 1989, the deceased had experienced working as a journalist for a photography periodical. This tape is thought to have been created during that time. The label on the tape read, 11/28/1983, Maibara Keiichi. It is thought the tape was recorded during the interview with Maibara Keiichi, the only survivor in the Great Hinamizawa disaster that occurred in June of 1983. As the only person who lived through the disaster on the night of June 21st, surrounded in mystery, many interested parties attempted to question him, but he never once spoke physically to anyone in public. Therefore, the tape caused quite a stir, possibly being of extremely high value. It's really hard to talk about stuff when I know I'm being recorded. Please don't worry about it. Here, it won't be a problem if I do this, right? After this, the sound quality dramatically decreases. Did he cover the recording device with something? Then let's get started. Here's my first question. Keiichi, where were you the night of the great disaster? I'd gone behind the shrine and took a path to the woods for a while. There's a rope bridge there. A little while before you get up into the mountains. I fell from there and lost consciousness. Does this happen during the night of the disaster between the 21st and the 22nd? No. It was the morning of the 21st on Tuesday, which means I woke up in the afternoon of the next day. I think I was out for a day and a half. Why on earth were you there? I mean, I'm sure everybody wants to know, but the bridge you fell from that day, a weekday I might add, was quite far from both your house and the school, wasn't it? Speaking frankly, there are some who say you knew of the great disaster beforehand and fell from the rope bridge as you were trying to free the village. This isn't a joke. Please don't be so arbitrary about this. I think it's a terrible thing to say, too. Please don't be offended. Anyway, about the rope bridge you fell from, it was right here on the map, right? The rope bridge beyond the back of the shrine through the path of the woods? Probably. I never went over there, so I can't say for sure. I guess I want you to know why you were out somewhere you'd never been before in the weekday morning. And then, well, about the riverbed you fell unconscious on. Have you heard the rumors of that being impossible? Impossible. That word again. For a little while, Maibara Keiichi mutters the word impossible several times. Why would it be impossible? You know how the volcanic gas originated in Onigafuji Swamp. Some scholars did some pretty delicate simulations and modelings and discovered something very interesting. The volcanic gas was heavier than the air, so it went along the ground, flowing lower and lower in places, kind of like what the water does. And with the Onigafuji Swamp as its source, they were able to test how much time it would take for the gas to erupt and spread across the whole village. So, well, that riverbed that you were unconscious on, the gas, it would have flowed down there. I don't really understand what you're getting at. In other words, if you were really passed out on that riverbed, you would have been in the middle of all the toxic gas that was spreading everywhere that night. That means there was no chance you could have been passed out there. Allow me to be a little more frank. I think that maybe you might be telling a lie. During the great disaster, you were hiding in a safe place, keeping an eye out for when the gas got thinner and reappeared in front of the SDF. And they were secured. How about that? Is that right on the mark? For a short time, the journalist pressed Maibara Keiichi further in a teasing way, but all that can be heard are heavy sighs. Even if that was the case, I wouldn't even be surprised at this point. What do you mean you wouldn't be surprised? Was the recording taken really, Maibara Keiichi? Some harbor suspicions. You said before, didn't you, that it was impossible. Impossible things that happen in Hinamizawa all the time. There are people who shouldn't exist. Dead people end up alive. It's not really that unusual. Never thought that I, of all people, would be asked to prove that I was still alive when I was supposed to have died. The journalist and Maibara Keiichi both laughed for a while. To verify its authenticity, I had others in the Maibara family check tapes with his voice in it. However, the sound was not clear. Much of the time had passed, so the relatives I had checked with couldn't remember what he sounded like. I was unable to gain positive proof that it was actually Maibara Keiichi's voice. Alright then. I'll change the subject. What do you think about the debate of whether this gas disaster was a curse in the 5th year of the serial freak deaths of incidents in Hinamizawa? I don't think it was. I was the curse that year after all. Oh, what do you mean? What do I was just answering the question. Doubts also regarding the date of November 28th written on the tape. The curse. Well, you probably won't believe me when I tell you this. I was the one who caused it. I was the one who wished for the whole village to die, and it happened. What an exciting story. Exciting. I suppose you could call it that. After Maibara Keiichi's failed attempt on a certain August day, 2 months after the disaster, he was diagnosed with a mental disorder and transferred to a treatment facility. I was the one who killed Takano, and Coach, and Oishi too. At that time, I had some kind of divine power. Yes, I suppose it was like footsteps. Footsteps? Wait, well, what's that supposed to mean? Have you never heard footsteps before? The facility never allowed any news coverage, so it was extremely unlikely that a tape from the media dated after August 1983 would have had his voice on it. Today when you're walking around, try stopping suddenly. Something interesting will happen. Anyway, if you hear an extra footstep, even though you've already stopped walking, you'd better be careful, you know. Yes, I'll be careful. Is what I'm saying really that funny to you? However, the reporter had been criticized for his forceful methods of collecting data while he was active. There is a possibility he broke into the facility and forced Maibara Keiichi to talk. You've been doing nothing but laughing in my face this whole time. You're just like Coach. You pretend to sympathize with me, to listen to what I have to say, but your eyes are telling me you think I'm a lunatic. That's not true. No, I can tell. Your eyes are the same as Coach. Is this truly Maibara Keiichi's voice? The authenticity of this recording is still wrapped in mystery. I never heard the footsteps again that day, so I don't think I have that terrible power anymore. Perhaps, right here, right now, I'll wish for you to die. I'll wish for your death for saying all these unpleasant things. Yes, this time why don't I decide how you die? Takano was burnt to death, so... Let's go with the opposite, with water. I hope you drown and die. How's that? 15 years after this tape was created, the reporter, just as Maibara Keiichi had predicted, died in an accident out onto the sea. If I'm in top form like I was, then you die before tomorrow morning for sure. Now then, I wonder how many days will it take for you to drown? You better be careful, you know. Don't go getting yourself killed by something stupid curse I put on you, okay? The recording ends in the middle of Maibara Keiichi's laughter. And Maibara Keiichi. Late on the night of November 30th, 1983, 2 days after the interview, he suddenly died from a high fever cause unknown. Records of the remains of the strange words he kept giving after pressing the call button the day that he died. An extra set of footsteps. The end. Well, there's the tips, though. Here we go. I'm sorry if I didn't do it that well. A new scenario has been unlocked. All cast review session has become available to play in an extra in the tile menu. All cast review session, and click on Tatarigoshi. Okay. And let's read the extra. Okay.
Thank you very much for enjoying Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 3, Tatarigoroshi. How do you like it? It had a different story, sort of atmosphere than the previous chapters. I'd be happy if you enjoyed it.
A bad end again. The type which we're so fond of, huh? Personally, I wanted to get a scene of the gas coming in, the villagers spasming and foaming at the mouth one by one before dying. Do you all think so too?
Of course I do not think so. Again, it happened again.
A huge bad end!
Huh? Mi-chan, you sure seem happy about the bad end.
Well, it's more like we can all honestly do that at this point is laugh. The terrible endings have been escalating through the chapters. It finally reached accumulation, I suppose.
Everyone died together as friends. As friends. Nippon.
I guess you could say that. I die every time, though, and I'm a little tired of it. It'd be nice to have an ending where I didn't die once in a while. Tomitake, you're the kind of like a news reporter. When you die, it's like, oh, well, we're in the second half now. Kind of.
Okay, now here we all are. The new character portraits that debut in this chapter. Everyone give a big round of applause. First is Coach Irie Kyosuke.
I'm honored to have your introduction. Hello there. I was a minor character, but having a full portrait like this makes me feel really important.
It's true. You had too many appearances and too much dialogue to be a minor character this time.
I don't know if I'll appear in the next scenario, so please root for me.
Thank you very much. Next up we have Chie, who's been around since chapter 1 but never had a portrait until now.
Hello there, everyone. They had me appear in school scenes ever since the first chapter, but for whatever reason I didn't have my own portrait. I wonder why.
Yes, I wonder. Oh, someone get Chie a seat, please.
Okay, now everybody's here. Rena, you can do the honors again.
Okay, everyone. Please pick up this cup nearest you in the table. There are plenty of different drinks.
These after parties have really gotten lively. How many do we have here now? Including us, I think there are about 10 people. Now we finally have the same number of minors and adults. We can all drink without being ashamed. Speaking of beer, how is something so delicious when cold turns so bad when warm? One of the 7 wonders of the world, I say. I wonder why. Okay, I'll pour some beer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Huh? There were 6 adults here?
Me, I would like the foamy barley tea as well. Rika, you can't drink.
Anyway, Rena, let's get this moving.
Well, okay. Can I have everyone's attention now, please? All right, everyone. Excellent work on Tatarigoroshi chapter. Cheers!
Cheers! Yay! Okay then, let's get down to our traditional plot discussion.
Still, though, this chapter just confused us yet again. Well, if anyone has an opinion, please raise your hand.
Wow, everyone's being so discreet. No hands? Then why don't I break the ice? Oh, excuse me, could you change the music, please? To something a little more mysterious. Yeah, that's good.
The mood has been set. All right, Takano, take it away.
I think that just by poring over the Tatarigoroshi story, the mystery won't be revealed. I know what you mean, obviously. That's how the stories have been set up.
Was there something like that in particular?
I don't know if I'm right, but in Onikakushi, when Maibara was eating in the restaurant with Oishi, Sonozaki found out, and it was a little mysterious, right? It was certainly mysterious, just like in Onikakushi, but after reading Watanagashi, a few things made a lot of sense. When I mentioned a restaurant with cute uniforms during the story, it must have meant Angel Mort. And Angel Mort's owned by the Sonozaki family, so... Someone who knew Keiichi was there too and told me. It makes a good amount of sense, right? That's what we mean. There are subtle differences in the Higurashi stories, but I think there's 3 facets that are the same for each. The character settings for each, for example.
I was scary in Onikakushi, but that was only because it was Onikakushi. It was because my character was the exact same in all 3 stories. Isn't that it?
I agree with the characters being exact same. The most extreme case being me dying in the same way, in the same place every time.
No matter which story it is, you always die on the same day.
There's always a scene where in Watanagashi, Takano and Tomitake sneak into the ritual implement storehouse. There's a scene. The same scene may have still happened on other stories, even though it wasn't portrayed.
I think it still happened, save for a few events. The weather the day of the festival, what we did in the club, and Satoko's uncle coming home. It was almost all the same.
Which means we have a bunch more questions. If the stories are told in the exact same environment each time, why do they end up being so different? If we think in a general sound novel type way, sometimes the story branches depending on choices, right? So, like, if in Watanagashi you've been given the doll to my sister, and an unavoidable bad end from a choice so early on, that's pretty scary.
Well, in Tatarigoroshi, maybe you decide to kill the uncle or not.
I think it was way before that. I think it branched back when the uncle's lover disappeared. Because of some trouble, he returned to Hinamizawa.
Then what was the first branch in Onikakushi?
I think it was when I appeared and started talking about the serial freak deaths incidents related to the Oyashiro's curse.
You know, I just thought of something. If Keiichi gave the doll to Mion, and if Oishi and my uncle hadn't appeared, would we not have spent our time in peace without anything happening?
I see. Satoko's gotten right to the point. You're right. You can say that again. Then maybe we should pray Oishi and her uncle don't show up in this dark story. And then we can prevent Sonozaki from getting in a bad mood. Everyone will be happy. Yay, big sis! You're needed for the bad ending. Be careful, everyone. If you make my sister mad, you're sure to get a bad end. What are you saying? Shion! Next time I'll pound nails into you without mercy. Just you wait!
We can't solve any of the mysteries thus far, but we seem to have put together a plan for how to get the story to end happily.
I wonder if that would really make us happy. Oishi and Hojo Teppei don't show up. Mion gets the doll. Is that all we have to make sure of? You're right. We're all forgetting the most important thing. Remember the Great Hinamizawa disaster?
You cannot prevent natural disasters. Should we make everyone in the village put on gas masks and move away? It's probably Oyashiro's curse, so we need to make sure not to make Oyashiro angry.
This is getting a little tricky. We mustn't anger Oyashiro, eh? And what should we do in order to prevent that? The dam project itself is probably out of the question. Maybe if there was never a dam project in the first place. That would be hard. If it didn't happen, we would need a ritual to quell Oyashiro's anger. Sinking a sacrifice into Onigafuchi Swamp. A ritual sacrifice!
A sacrifice? Who do we sacrifice?
Come on, use your heads. Someone who dies no matter what happens. If he's gonna die anyway, then we might as well help out Hinamizawa. When you say dies no matter what, you're talking about me, aren't you? I knew all along. I knew you had some very important role in this story, Jiro. We'll get you to play your part. And with that, we have a blueprint for getting a nice, happy, good ending, don't we? Let's give it a try since we have time. Everyone involved, come over here. First, we stop Uncle Hojo, whose lover ran out on him from returning to Hinamizawa. Hiya, my name's Uncle Hojo. He has no portrait, so I'm standing in. I'm so lonely and blue because my lover ran away. Time to go back to Hinamizawa, lock up Satoko, and raise her to my maidservant. Why don't I take my motorbike back? I'll just put in the key and click, click. Oh my god. Kamu!
Judgment! To ashes to dust shall you return! Satoko, don't you think this is a little too much gunpowder? I hope Coach is alright.
Next we stop Oishi from showing up. Me this time. My name's Kurado Oishi, a hot, good-looking middle-aged man who looks like a blues singer. Kaboom!
Me, judgment for you.
At least, unless we forget, a follow-up service for my sister. Come here, makes sense. There's a cute little doll for you. How nice. I'm not really understanding this. And finally, we must quell Oyashiro's anger. Then will our last actor please come up?
Tie him fast, wrap him up, and hang him. He'll sick for 3 days, right?
I'm not that patient. Let's just get it over with. And with that, the case has been closed. The end. Oh my god! Why did they never show this in the anime? Oh no! All of a sudden, this arm of mine is glowing with awesome power.
This pile of corpses is a pretty big deal. Huh? It's the phone. Hello? Oh, Keiichi! Thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah, looks like you're all having a roaring old time, and yet here I am, busy reading the scenario for the next story. Whatever, I'm in a good mood today, so I'll let you off without any teasing. Is Shion there? Can you put her on? What? You're going to announce it here? I wanted to keep it a secret for a little longer, but okay.
A secret between Shion and Keiichi?
What do you mean? Nobody told me about this. Nobody! Okay, Kei-chan, let's say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. The main character of the next story will be Sunozaki Shion! What? Yeah, so that's that. The one topping the popularity charts is her first appearance. The late appearing younger sister of twins has been the pattern of things ever since the days of TH. I have no idea what it means, and it doesn't matter. Anyway, I've been fired from my main character post for once. If the rumors are right, I might even have a portrait finally. Oh. Toho? Yahoo! Well, portraits of Kei-chan would be a big waste of disk space. It couldn't fit all in one disk. There's a pretty high chance it'll be the first one dropped.
Are you okay with this, Shion? The main character always meets some terrible fate in the end.
Well, until now, that doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen next time.
With Tatarigoroshi, we're already at the third game in the Higurashi When They Cry series. This first half presented a lot of strange and exciting mysteries, but starting next time, the mysteries will start to be solved in the second half, marking the investigation arc, temporary name. That means it'll be a thrilling story where I become a detective and solve all these crazy unfair mysteries. You all better think of some good signature phrases like, "You, sir, are the criminal." It won't happen, never! You'll never get too close to the 3 family secrets being imprisoned that's being tortured! You're a shoe and meet a violent natural death! Sis, I should send this in to you. Are you mentally prepared for me to see you through all their mysteries and secrets, and then have you apologize to me, and then end yourself? No chance of Oyashiro's curse for me, is there?
Anyway, the new story to begin the second half, temporarily called Mangagamer, or Eye-Opening, is currently undergoing diligent development. We should be able to unveil it to you all within the near future, so I hope you look forward to it.
Onigakushi, Watanagashi, Tatarigoroshi. What truths will you all come up with after reading these 3 stories? Or will you just come up with more questions instead of theories? Rena has no clue either.
For all you warriors who never yielded to these 3 mysteries and kept on fighting, we present to you one final scenario as thanks for your enthusiasm, one which we never originally planned on giving you. Please enjoy it. Ah, the time-killing arc, before Mangagashi.